take their ass to court so they don't repossess your car because there is no contract once you rescind anything, whether it's the social security number, the birth certificate, or whatever, because these people are not giving you credits, payments, or distributions. So yeah, the social security might say, "Oh, you're the beneficiary," but haven't been established through the courts because that's the only thing
How do
that's
you do that?
you can take them to court. It's all about rights, titles, and interests. Is that correct?
Yep.
Because it's all
So
about beneficial ownership. Because this is what they're doing. And I'm gonna tell you guys now, and I'm gonna land the
yep.
plane up under the what is it, 31 CFR 363.27, and you can
Yep.
check out 363.10. They are doing forms of registration as you as the owner and them as the beneficiary. So in all the cases that we do, we establish that we are the beneficiary, and
You
that's
gotta
why we
correct the
ask for an
record.
accounting. That's it. And
Can
I land my plane.
So
And that's
how
and
do
that's
you
the
do
thing,
that?
right? We have a
can I,
conflict. We have a conflict of beneficiaries here. Just listen.
Forensic?
You have a conflict of beneficiaries.
Hold on a second. How do you? So
Uh,
how do you get that switched? You take you go to court like what civil court or
you all.
You could file a claim, and a lot of
Correct the
people go to
record and
federal
file a
Come
courts,
claim.
on, man.
but nobody's going through the Article 3 courts, which is the United States Supreme Court.
yep.
So
Can I
you gotta file a claim, man. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. You gotta file a claim. How you gonna
hold
get
up?
your interest, your dividends, your from all these contracts, and you the third party beneficiary and the beneficiary because you just have to make the claim and
Hmm.
know who you are, man. They ain't just finna give it to you and say, oh yeah, you the beneficiary. Are you receiving any payments? Because if you were, no
Right.
one would be on this platform right now.
I
Hold
know,
on,
but my question to you
guys.
is how do you start that? How do you start filing a claim? That's all.
Can I I got to jump in here
All
because
right.
I did leave, but I but I kept listening. I wonder if you guys understand that government is a trust, but it's not the kind of trust like some of you are talking like it is. And let me tell you, the worst position in a trust to be is a beneficiary. Okay, let me put it
That's
to
a
you like
fucking
this:
lie. No, that's a lie.
we are in a trust right now. This is a trust call, okay? And I'm not benefiting, but when I'm talking, somebody else is, okay? So the type of government, the type of trust the government is they're supposed to be acting on our behalf, okay? But a beneficiary, if you go in there and you say that, well, the state or the federal government, I'm the beneficiary, well, you cannot sue. A beneficiary cannot sue, cannot tell them when to release funds. There is no power in being the beneficiary. You guys have to understand that,
There's a
okay?
lot of
Um.
And
power
the
in being a beneficiary. I can tell you that now. And it's on my TikTok. I beat those cases because I'm the beneficiary. They can't bring no claim against me. And I'm making a claim to the fucking account number, which they call the case number, all that. So there's power in being a beneficiary, lady.
The
I got
investor.
I
when
got
the
all these fucking
beneficiary
trust books right
sues
here,
the
and the parties
trust,
to a trust don't even need to know that a trust is being formed. I
Listen.
got
yes,
all these books
if
right
you
here, man.
created the trust, but you didn't create this
I
trust,
then, but I
okay?
go into 31 CFR 363.27 and show that they are the fucking
Benefic-
fiduciaries, which is a
a
beneficiary, and I'm fucking making a claim, and that's how I was winning my cases on TikTok.
That's the thing, though. The
trust,
the the, the
if
hurdle
you
is
sue a
contracts,
trust,
though.
you
Listen, the
cease to
hurdle
be
is
a
just contracts.
beneficiary.
When you
And
sign, you didn't sign as a beneficiary. You didn't sign as a trustee. You signed as a debtor to a creditor relationship. And let me tell you something. They take you to court because of that relationship. If you try to come in with a different relationship, they're trying to enforce that physical relationship. You don't get foreclosed on because of accounting per se when you're talking about actual debits and credits being balanced at the source. You're being foreclosed on based on an amortization schedule, a pooling and servicing agreement to protect who? The investor that purchased your note. Irregardless, you signed a contract saying that you waived your rights to security interest.
You
And
can
that
rescind the
security,
contract.
listen, look, I'm not going to go down
because the
that road. I'm,
contract
I'm
is
just
a
giving clear.
security
Listen, I'm
instrument,
giving
and clause one,
clarification.
you give
I'm
up all
giving.
your
Wait a second.
rights.
Hold on, Jules, please, respectfully. I'm just giving clarification. We try to merge all these contracts together. Okay. There's a reason why there are separate contracts for investors, indentured agreement, a pooling and
Yep,
servicing agreement. There are reasons why. Okay. The banks only tell people what they cannot do. They cannot tell, they don't tell them what they can do. And that's where the creativity comes in. You say, hey, well, guess what? Guess what? I have a promissory note here that's an asset in my books. Okay, well, why don't I just sell that at a discount, pass the risk down to a investor who wants to purchase and give me a lump sum, and then all I got to do is just have someone else enforce the amortization schedule, and I'm got paid, and I'm outside the loop. I'm not violating any contracts. There's been full disclosure. Why? Because the original debtor agreed to release the security interest. And that's the
that's
only
right.
way we do business. And people just want to ignore that. They want to be professionals in contract law, but they want to just, you know what? I'm just going to ignore the fact that I wrote away my security interest and somehow I can just use some other law or use some other title and position I'm not aware of and usurp the standing beneficiary who is quiet because you don't see the investor in court, who is what, waiting to receive their monthly distributions, quarterly distributions. Why? Because they put a claim on it, and in order for them to put a claim on it, what do? They offered cash. That's why you can go on Google right now and you can buy a promissory note. And if you buy a promissory note, I guarantee you're going to be making a call to a U.S. bank in a Wilmington Trust in right? These companies, these national associations that manage trust. And then you'll get a QSIP number to track the class, whatever note that you bought, right? And then you have entitlements to receive your distributions based on whatever agreement that you came to when you bought that note with that trust. Now, that's just a general overview. You see what I'm saying? And I'm saying that's the hurdle that you all have to understand when you are approaching talking about I'm the beneficiary of the trust, la 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 la. No, contracts are there for a reason. You're going to respect this contract. So
Yeah, you can
only you
switch
can
the
do.
contract. You can also switch it, bro. You don't have to stay
I'm
bound
not
by
saying.
anything
I'm not talking
that
about
you
saying
sign.
switching. I want
Hold
people
on,
to
but let me
under.
say
I
something.
want people to understand what's going on because they don't have that
Right.
understanding.
But people
You know
need
what I'm
to
saying?
understand their power, not just what's going on. These are fucking fraudulent contracts. Yes, they're making you a third party beneficiary to a pooling and servicing agreement or control agreement that they're selling. The people are funding it through their signatures. That's why they are bound by that contract. So let me tell you something, people. You can listen to whatever, but do your research on rescission. Because if you don't rescind the shit, you are bound. Because those courts acting as trustees and beneficiaries all the fucking time. They're gonna get their beneficial interest here. Sign this, yeah, go do 3 months in jail, whatever. They already hit you on the head. Now they're receiving the interest and dividends, all by your signature, your consent. So that's
Term,
what I'm saying.
did you just say rescission?
You just
Did you
backtracking
just
Yes,
say
nonsense. What I'm talking about?
rescission?
yes, I said
Term?
rescission. Yes,
Yes. Okay.
correct.
Listen. Let me, look, guys. Here's the thing. Thank you for saying that. Okay, because when you signed, look, let me give you to the. I'll use the lawsuit that I have. Okay, that I'm suing somebody's mortgage company.
Okay.
In the security instrument, it's called a mortgage or deed of trust. It gives the alleged parties, it defines everything, and it decides what a word means because those words do not line up with dictionaries. Okay. Um, uh, for example, okay, it's an extreme example. Lender does not mean United Wholesale Mortgage. Okay, it means he who creates the debt. Okay, so they have definitions, and then clause one of your mortgage. You gave your property away. It says you mortgaged, granted, and conveyed. Okay. All three of those mean the same thing. And it means that you gave it away. Okay. You gave it away in clause one. In clause 19, you told them they could sell it. Okay. Now, here's the crux is that in clause 23, they said when they get paid, they will file a release. And when they assigned it, they got paid and now they have to sign the release. So when they don't, rescind it. And uh, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go too deep in it, but you've got to hold them to the contract. And whoever was saying it, it's all about the contracts. You have to understand the each contract is a standalone, and hold them to the letter of the law, the words in the contract. Okay, they have obligations. Now, let me say, we operate. You have to understand our financial system. I'll break it down for you. A kindergartner can understand this. You've got a zero in the middle, and you have positive numbers to the right and negative numbers to the left. Gold and silver has value. It's on the right. It's on the positive side. This is your number line. This is ledgers. Okay, this is accounting. All the numbers on the left are notes. Okay, they are negative. Our financial system is based on debt. Let me show you how that is. A Federal Reserve note that has 100 on it, it is worth less than zero. How much less? 100 less. Okay? It has buying power, but no value. Okay? And you can deposit it. I watched my note get taken from the office, the bank's representative. I watched her take my note, walk up to the cashier, the teller, and she came back with a check. Okay, she deposited it. Suddenly that note, this is a conversion, that negative note was deposited. When you deposit, that negative thing becomes positive. Okay, it's money of account. And I heard somebody use that term, and you're right. So now there is a credit, and then she cut a check for that same amount, handed it to the lady who brought it back to me. It was not made out to me, it was made out to somebody else, which is called a third party beneficiary. Understand who you are, understand who they are, and understand your
Right.
contract and hold them to it. Okay, it is simple. Gold and silver is value, but has no buying power. You can't take it into Walmart, Target, Dillard's. You can't do it. It has no buying power in the public. Okay, so we operate on notes, and debt is the only thing you can buy something with. And the lender is the one who creates the debt. Your signature created the debt. I hope that simplifies it for you.
Please go
Definitely.
ahead.
Full faith and credit.
Fiat currency. It became fiat currency.
Right. Hey, I just want to say that they're foreclosing on these damn deed of trust and everything. Y'all should be foreclosing on the damn note for not receiving any payments, credits, or distributions. You haven't been paid.
That's
That's
what
why you
I'm doing. That's what I'm
right.
doing. I'm foreclosing. When I sued this mortgage company, United Wholesale Mortgage, I am foreclosing on them, and I'm doing it in a non-judicial state, but I am giving them due process. Because look, the United States, remember how I said earlier that just because I delegate the authority to spank my daughter doesn't mean that I don't still have authority to spank my daughter. Okay. I have the right to make notes. Those Federal Reserve notes are the Federal Reserve notes. Julie's notes are Julie's notes. You are doing everything they're doing, but you're dropping the ball. You're not enforcing your contracts. But the first thing is, none of you are reading your contracts. And that's the problem because you don't know what their obligations are.
You gotta
Also,
read.
what they are making off of this security instrument, your mortgage or deed contract, that's the terms and conditions, the contracts, terms and conditions of your note. Okay, but when you signed your note, you owned your house. There's only one way that in clause 1 that you can give that house to the bank is if you own it. You owned it when you gave them the debt that you created. Okay? Then you gave it away. You didn't even own it for 2 minutes. That's why they have you sign the note first, and then they have you grant mortgage and convey it to them. I dare you to try to give my house to somebody. You can't because you don't own it. Okay? You
No,
owned
yeah.
it, and then you foolishly gave it away. Okay?
Oh,
So when you look at the contract and you're like, oh, their responsibility, the whole contract, I don't care if it's a car, a boat, a house, the whole contract self-extinguishes once they receive the money. And let me tell you, here's the thing. Your notes are backed by your credit. When we gave the gold, our ancestors gave the gold, they gave us credit because now everything is paid for. All you have to do is give a note so that it will deduct from your credit account, your exemption account. And if you don't believe there's an extension account, before Mike Pence became vice president, he pissed me off. I had a lady who does federal backgrounds for the federal government. I had her run a background check, a full background check on him. And I saw that he had paid for his traffic ticket using his exemption account. It says it right there in black and white in that report. Okay. But credit is backed by the gold in so much that we already gave it to him. I don't care what they did with it. That's why we have credit. That's why we're spending credit when we put the notes in the machine. Okay, you go to Walmart, you have $100 Federal Reserve note, you stick it in the deal, it says notes, but you're giving them the government's notes and you're not giving them your notes. We are making our notes because we still have the authority to print money, if you want to call it that, as much as they do. Okay, we didn't give up any rights. We delegated them and we share those authorities. Okay, so you issue notes, and ironically, the government pays those notes, but you're not smart enough to figure out that they did. For example, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they are chartered and funded by the federal government. And by the way, everybody thinks that they went private and they did not. I have a copy of their non-disclosure agreement that they have if you want to represent them as an attorney. And it says in there, you are not permitted to tell people that that Fannie Mae Freddie Mac is government. Okay, they were created by government, they're funded by government, and they are what funds the government back. Okay, and every time you sign a promissory note, if it's on real estate, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, within 30 days, they fund that note from your credit. And now they have the note and somebody else gets the mortgage. Okay, and then they try to enforce this Look, the mortgage, you say, I have to pay the mortgage. No, you don't. The mortgage didn't create a debt. Those are the terms and conditions. You cannot pay a mortgage. And nobody has ever come to you and asked you to pay your note. And nobody ever will, because the government, as a sovereign, has to provide. There's like 6 things that a sovereign has to provide, and a home is one of them. And they have to use our credit. That's why that's your person's social security number goes on that, on your application and everything. So they know where to go and take the credit from, the prepaid, the exemption, and fund this note. And that's why they have it. Okay. Period. Does that make sense? But they said when they get paid, they would release it, and they got paid. If you don't believe me, let's say that you started out with United Wholesale Mortgage. Let's say that now you make payments to a company called Matrix or Mr. Cooper. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Go send a check to United Wholesale Mortgage for $100. They're going to send it back and they're going to say, that ledger's closed. We sold it. Okay. Oh, you got paid. And now I'm going to sue you because clause 23 was your sole responsibility. And they said, they respond back and they said, but you said we could sell it in clause 19. I said, yeah, but you said when you got paid that you would release it. Of course you can sell it. And I don't care how many times you sell it, but you sold it, you got paid. And I have proof that you got paid what's called premium price. And that means far more than the face value of the note. The government paid that. It is a guaranteed loan. And guess who the guarantor is? Look at the bottom of your contract. What is Fannie Mae's name doing on your mortgage documents? Go look up Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and you'll find out that they were created by the government to be the guarantor, not the insurance, the guarantor. And there's only one person who is liable for payments in this situation. If you go co-sign for a car for your son, if you co-sign, you're the guarantor, you're the one guaranteeing they'll get paid. And Fannie Mae guarantees all the mortgages, meaning they're responsible to pay. Oh, the United States is paying our bills. But you
I have a
have to
question.
know, and then you have to sue them for not fulfilling, for breaching clause 23.
I have a question about that guarantor aspect, really quick, right? When the term guarantor and Freddie Mac being listed, identified as a guarantor, are you talking about specifically to the promissory note and the security deed, or are you talking about being the guarantor in any way to a indentured agreement?
I'm not sure what your question is. The guarantor is the one who has the liability.
Okay, all right, and I understand what the guarantor roles play, and
Okay.
I'm gonna explain it from an investor perspective, right? The guarantor is one who ensures that the investor gets paid.
Well, there are no investors when the
Now listen to me.
contract
Hold
is
on. No,
signed.
no, no, no.
Okay.
Listen to me. What I'm saying is that there's two things you're talking about here, and I understand what you're saying, what you're alluding to. Okay, because yes, they do sell the note. The originator sells it to the creditor. The creditor sells it, puts it into a
No, you're
bankruptcy.
talking about the mortgage. The note
Okay,
never
that's
moves.
listen,
Fannie Mae
listen.
pays the note, and the note never moves from Fannie Mae. You're talking about the mortgage moves independently of the
No,
note.
no. The note, yes, the mortgage stays with the debtor. The mortgage, the security deed, the promise to pay. A promissory note at the origination is simply a promise to pay. That's not a promise to pay that's conditional on accounting. They say it is simply a promise to pay, right?
Right.
And they build
Which is
hold on,
tender of
hold.
payment.
Listen. I'm just trying to keep it simple here, okay? When we sign a promissory note, it's just simply a promise to pay. And in that promise to pay, somewhere in that document, we waive the security interest. Okay. right? Now, I
Yes,
understand
you
from
do.
listen, and I understand from an accounting perspective that yes, when we sign that note, the originator then sells it to the creditor. The creditor then puts it into a trust and then sells that note to an investor. So they are de-recognizing assets on their books and they're transferring it to other ledgers. I understand that aspect. What I'm saying is when you talk about a guarantor, the only place I've seen a guarantor is when it pertains to a position that gives some sort of a promise pertaining to an investor relationship, pertaining to a bond that was purchased, a guarantor for a bond, not a guarantor for the debtor, right? They're not a guarantors for the debtor. They're guarantors for the investor that made a claim on the note that got passed downstream, and they eventually went on some website or spoke to some bank in and wanted to purchase that note, that tranche, whatever that is. See what I'm
The
saying?
special purpose vehicle, because they pool them.
Okay,
Okay, but
and let me
those are
hold
your
on.
mortgages.
Wait. Hold on. I want you to understand something. From an accounting perspective, the reason why they have to put things into a trust is because their ledgers are balanced at their source. So, and one thing about a ledger is the moment it becomes imbalanced, one penny up or down, that is system failure. Okay. That's why they de-recognize it off their books. So their books stay balanced. It gets recognized and then it gets passed down. And eventually the buck stops at an investor. And the whole time the originator, the creditor, and the trust are playing middleman between you and that investor. Okay, so and I'm saying all this so people just have a clear understanding of when you say guarantor, who are they actually guaranteeing? They're not guaranteeing the debtor. They are guaranteeing the investor. That's what they're guaranteeing. Okay, because they don't want to have another 2008 situation. I'm assuming now, me personally, I've never seen Freddie Mac listed as a guarantor because I have not specifically looked at a bond indenture agreement where Freddie Mac was involved. I typically look at bond indenture agreements for like credit cards and car loans, right? But I know that guarantor title pertains to protecting investors, not you.
Well,
Well, the
it
bank
does.
the
It
bank is
does.
not the creditor. The bank is not
It
the
does
creditor.
secondarily. It does secondarily apply
No.
to
Secondary don't
the
apply.
investor. But
We can't stretch it.
at the end of the day, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac buy funds every note. Every note. Go get your forensic auditing done.
No,
Fannie
no,
Mae,
they
Freddie
just play
Mac
middleman.
buys
Listen.
all of
I
it.
explained this already. They play middleman. It is recognized. That note is recognized on the originator's lender. That's how before they write your promissory note, right? They've already created credits on that ledger, so they can issue you a check. Okay, so
But no, they
anything
don't.
that
No, they
No,
don't
they do
issue
listen,
not.
you
They
a
don't do
check.
that. No, they don't do
hold
that.
on,
And on top of that, the note is an
wait,
unregistered note. The note never belonged to the
excuse
bank
me.
before they give it to you for signing. That's
Excuse me.
incorrect.
Hold on, excuse me, right? They use your promissory note, excuse me, I had that backwards. They use your promissory note, right, to create a ledger entry. Your promissory note is now a asset to the bank, okay? To balance it out, they issue
No,
you
it is
a,
not. That's
oh my
incorrect.
gosh,
It is an asset to the signee. And as a matter of fact, banks that try to do
bruh,
unilateral, you can breathe
talking
all you want.
louder
I won
doesn't,
my house against SunTrust in federal court, Charlotte, North
listen.
Carolina, the same exact way. Go ahead, keep talking.
All I'm saying is, from an accounting perspective, right? In order for a originator to pass it to a creditor because they put it on your mortgage contract, you're going to have a different servicer, right? You're going to have so if they pass it down. They endorse the back of these things, right? In order for them to
And they do that,
listen, bro,
without giving disclosure. They're not
listen, listen,
supposed to sell the note because
listen.
the note was first and foremost, they never had a security. The security is in the form of the note for the actual creditor who signs the note, and
Well,
give it
who's
to
the
the
most?
bank. The bank cannot lend their own credits. That's against federal law. It's you
Well,
They're
who
it's
not.
it's you who's giving them the credit when you sign the unregistered promissory note that the bank gives you.
So I want you to understand, right?
I'm listening to you.
We sign
I
a
do hear
piece,
you.
we sign a piece of paper that does not make us the creditor. Once we
We
sign that
Yes,
piece
it
of paper,
does.
shh, bro, one step at a time. Because if we are the creditor, then print money right now. Get on your HP printer and print it out and go
Okay,
and deal. Wait,
first
hold
and
on, hold
foremost, the
on.
people are supposed to be creating the money, but right now they operating in democracy and they doing it in fraud.
No,
What are you
no, no,
talking
no.
about?
They're
And
not doing it in
and
fraud.
furthermore, if we
They're
were
not doing it
not
in.
the creditors, they would not be asking us for
Bro,
our
stop
credit in
screaming,
the
bro.
first
Stop
place.
screaming.
That's what I'm
Just talk.
saying.
Just stop
Because you like
screaming.
to cut people
He
off.
thinks louder is
If
winning.
we were not the creditors, they would not be asking for your credit in the first place. All
No,
you
they
gotta
don't ask
do
for.
is go
Listen,
look
listen,
up. All you gotta do
listen.
is go look
They
up the
don't
consumer
ask
laws, my
for.
guy.
They don't ask for your credit. They ask for your accurate identifying information that could be tied back
They check
to
your
what?
credit.
What? Stop.
They ask to
Listen,
check your credit
bro,
because they have
bro.
none. They
Listen,
have
listen,
no credit.
listen. Just hear me out. You don't have to take it in.
They're
Just hear me out.
bankrupt.
Just hear me out. Just hear me
no,
out. Just
I
hear me out.
actually
Just hear
want
me
to
out.
hear you out. Like
Just hear me out. Okay, so
just
listen.
listen.
What they do, from my understanding and my research, is that you don't give them credits. You give them specific identifying information tied back to my first point that before we start talking about instruments, we must talk about a system of keeping accurate records. Okay? So we give them information where they can accurately track us. Okay? We agreed, we accepted, we presented information. Now they have to go through some know your customer policies and all this other stuff. They have to follow the Federal Reserve guidelines, but they must tie every dollar, every credit, every check to a asset, to a liability. So, with that being said, they actually generate the credits in their ledgers with the permission of the Federal Reserve. But us, we are not the creditor. We provide information for them to make credits, but it's always tied to a asset. It's always tied to an
And
asset.
liabilities are assets. Our liabilities are their assets, and
Now,
their assets are our liabilities.
where they get us is that the courts are not talking about accounting. The courts are talking about a amortization schedule.
Exactly.
Something downstream that was created to enforce. That's why you receive statements. A statement is what? Information. Most of the time, they even say it right on the bill. This is not a bill, this is a statement. This is what I'm trying to get into. Understanding from the accounting perspective, the debits and the credits must naturally be balanced on their ledgers. That gives them the ability to recognize and de-recognize that note off of their ledger so they can sell it, right? There's always an exchange, right? I have an asset. I want to sell it to the creditor. The creditor what? Gives me funds, sometimes at a discounted rate, right? They either take a slight loss or it balances right out. And that I think is where there could be some focus on in the accounting. Yes, I understand contractually that I signed as the debtor and I am obligated under the promissory note and the amortization schedule that was built off of that promissory note to provide payments on a monthly basis in accordance with that amortization schedule, but that amortization schedule is not directly aligned with the recognition and de-recognition of a asset off of their books. The
Hey, do you
originator,
understand that? Do you also understand that these promissory notes have a named beneficiary? Do you understand the significance of that? The
yes, yes,
named
yeah, yeah,
beneficiary?
yes. The named beneficiary is the investor who eventually, from the originator to the creditor to the bank NA that manages the trust, that named beneficiary is that investor who never walks a day into
No,
the
the
courts.
named payee. The named
They
payee.
never
Okay, wait a
even put
second.
they never put the homes into a REMIC trust, because if they had to put the home into a trust, they'd
They
have to
are
pay out
in a
90.
REMIC trust.
I can't, bro.
I
Listen,
I
this
find
this
that
is this
hard to
is
believe.
this is accounting. This is all they're doing
All
is just
accounting.
passing. They're passing it downstream so they can what get some sort of payment in order to move the asset off of their books. I'm not too focused on the statements, right? I focus on the fact that hey, in order for you to move this asset off of your books and onto another book, right? You receive some form of exchange because you have to keep your ledger balanced at all times. So if we're constantly balancing it downstream, the imbalance is between me and the investor who has a QSET number and is entitled to monthly distributions while it's trading or whatever the hell they're doing with it. You know what I'm saying? In order to ensure that the investor gets their returns. If I pay $50,000 for a note, then I expect $800 a month returns. Then that is my right. I have a claim to that. I
But
have a
wouldn't that
claim to
QSIP
that
be coming
interest.
from that actual bank who would be doing it? Wouldn't they be trading under the QSIP of that particular bank and not the?
Say that again.
I say wouldn't they be doing that based off the particular bank that QSIP? Wouldn't they be doing it off that particular bank's QSIP?
I don't understand what you're saying. Like
You said
if a
like you
notice
said that they're using the QSIP to trade online to trade on the stock market, right?
the QSIP tracks the notes that are trading. Okay.
So they're not using the QSIP of the signee who's giving their state made social security number. So you telling me the credits is not
No,
coming from the
No,
state?
the note, no, no,
no.
no, no. They make a QSIP number. The QSIP has nothing to do with your Social Security number. Let me tell you something. If you're able to find any information on a stock market that has your name and somehow trading to something, they always have to track the source. They keep accurate understanding from source to the end game. What's going on?
You remember that? Okay, so you remember what happened with Wells Fargo, right? How like Wells Fargo was making like it's like they have like one account, but then they make like 4, 5 other accounts that they was trading money and doing all kind of stuff with these accounts without the people being aware. So no, it's not that they can't make extra accounts and do stuff. They're doing this all the time.
No, I think the Wells Fargo issue was that they were adding products and services. And trust me, I didn't do much research on that, but just from what I
You could be right
faintly
though. You could be
remember,
right. We all about
faintly
learning. You
right, they
could be
were
right.
adding
Maybe I could be
products and
wrong.
services that the customer did not actually agree to, and then that allowed. So they had an account, they had a contract, they had a relationship, but I think they were somehow adding extra services that the customer didn't agree to, and they were able to profit off of that somehow.
So
That's my
why is the
general.
bank? So let me ask you this: Why is the bank? Why is a bank right? Because the banks
Mhm.
federally banks can't lend their own credit. So why are banks? So why are banks requesting for a state made SSN that you actually supposed to be benefiting from, not
Okay,
being put
okay.
in debt from?
That goes back to the original foundation. We have to take this back to foundation origin. Before we start talking about transactions and instruments and securities and secret accounts, right, we first must have a accurate system of record. The only thing a social security number is, it tracks income. Okay. It tracks income and taxes for what? For taxation. Okay. So when you go to a job, right? And they're reporting under that specific number, you're qualified to work in the United States of America. You're qualified to be employed, right? You're qualified to receive a check, right? And you're also qualified to be taxed because you agree to that, okay? Because you
But
made that
doesn't that
contract.
SSN also show that you are a beneficiary of the trust of the In God We Trust, like the actual trust of the
Um,
corporation?
I think there's a difference between a constitutional trust that deals with protecting your rights versus a trust entity that deals with contracts, and they're not the same. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
Okay,
They're,
fair
they're,
enough. Fair enough.
they're
Fair
the,
enough.
you know what I'm saying? So, and that's why I say we don't come in with a trust. If you want a trust, go apply online for a trust, figure out what type of trust you need, get the EIN number. At that point, that's the trust. Okay. Now, here's the thing.
I have to agree with you on that because right now I'm in court with PHH Mortgage up here in Ohio, and what I'm getting them on is standing. You know, they didn't have standing before the outset of the litigation, and that they actually didn't have the note to show that they was an injured party before or on the outset of the litigation, right?
Well, it's not about being an injured party, right? You're talking about this, right? The servicer has a right under the pooling, and think about this. What is pooling and servicing? Okay, they're servicing and pooling your payments into a trust so investors could get paid. The same investors that agreed to purchase your promissory note with a certain risk of payment or not payment, right? There's insurance involved to ensure that everybody gets paid somehow, right? And so that is what's going on.
I mean,
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if you
Does
ever
that make
have you
sense,
been
though?
have let me ask you this. I'm gonna just ask a simple question, right? Have you personally ever been to federal court over a foreclosure?
No. I
Have
had
you
it
ever
removed.
have
It
you
got
ever been?
remanded because I didn't do it right. And right
Okay,
now
not
I'm
a
in
problem. No,
appeals.
not a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
But
Not a
I've
problem.
never,
Have you
Mhm.
ever had litigation on the state level?
Yeah. Yes, I
Okay,
have.
fair enough. Fair enough. I just ask all those things because with my issue that I'm having, me versus Lonnie Mitchell versus PHH Mortgage, I'm actually winning big. I mean, the thing is, they could. I'll give you an example, right? How PHH tried to use the first nominee, which was MERS. But they didn't pass MERS an assignment of mortgage. In order to have a lien, you gotta have an assignment of mortgage and you gotta have a note. They both gotta accompany one another. If they not accompanying one another, there is no lien. A lien is not a lien in and of itself. It's a lien because you have the assignment of mortgage and you have the actual physical note. Because the note you can't put on the record like you can an assignment of mortgage. This is why I
Yeah.
know for Ohio under Rule 10C, you got to show the clerk that you actually, literally, physically, as a bank, as a so-called creditor, have the actual physical note in hand. So where PHH Mortgage is a second nominee, in other words, they got it from MERS. They never got an assignment of mortgage, but they cannot prove.
Okay.
They cannot prove that they had the note. They could even have a special endorsement winning the lineage. But if they cannot prove that they actually have the debt as a so-called bank with bringing a claim in, if they can't prove that they had the note before the outset of the litigation, they got to kick it out or they're going to have to bring it back because the bank can never prove that they were a injured party to have a claim. This is
Let me see if I
just
understand you
how
correctly.
this is just
Let me see if I
the
understand you
route. This is
correctly.
just the route I went. This is just the route I went and was successful with it.
Let me see if I understand you correctly, right? So MERS was listed as a nominee or receiving or having the note, but it wasn't actually recorded in the county. So there
Correct.
was
Exactly.
an issue with the okay. There you go. So we have
it wasn't MERS. Actually, MERS. Okay, this is how it went, right? MERS did an assignment of mortgage, right? But then MERS took the assignment of mortgage and pushed it over to PHH Mortgage. But here in Ohio is a recorder state. So whatever
there you go. So they have to record it every time they transfer.
Time's out. Again, MERS is not PHH Mortgage. Whenever those things go from one bank to the next nominee, they got to go put it on the record.
They got to record it.
Mortgage,
Right.
PHH Mortgage, the assignment that they got, right? They never put it on the record in Cuyahoga County records with the Registry of Deeds, right? So they never did that. So because they didn't do that, they can't prove that they actually have an interest in the property or perfected interest in the property. So
it's just an assignment out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden now they're following some sort of chain. There's a gap in the assignment.
Because at the end of the day, right? If a person if you look at the precedent, right? If you look at like Federal Home Loan Mortgage versus Schwartz-Evolz, or if you look at Wells Fargo National Association, say versus George, or Wells Fargo Association versus Jordan, right? It gotta be, if they cannot prove, they could have an alignage, they could have an assignment of mortgage. If they don't got that note, if they can't show that note was transferred, like an original transfer date, and that transfer date is not before or on the outset of the litigation, that means they never had standing to invoke the subject matter jurisdiction of the court.
I understand. So
Go ahead, brother. I go ahead. I'll be kind of. I'm a talk by. Go ahead. I apologize. Go
No,
ahead.
so and just for simple, just so I can understand this simply, right?
Uh huh.
Based on chain of assignment from the point of origination, from originator to creditor to servicer to servicer to servicer, there has to be a recording of the assignment of the note. And if there's any gap at any point during that assignment that eventually led to a foreclosure, you now have a procedural violation, and that procedural violation is enough to reverse a foreclosure. Is that simply what you're saying?
That's it's so raw. Like if you just all you gotta
Oh
and don't
yeah. Okay.
matter of fact, don't believe nothing I'm telling you. Go look up the
Yeah.
precedent. Go look up Federal Home Loan Mortgage versus Schwarzschild. Go look up Wells Fargo National Association versus Jordan. Right? Go
Okay.
look up Wells Fargo National. Matter of fact, U.S. Bank National Association versus Horn. Right? You can go
Okay.
look up all of these Supreme Court cases, and it's telling you most of these banks, right? The mass majority of these banks that they when they give
Hmm.
these when they do these nominees and they doing these assignments, the mass
Hmm.
majority of them never have the note because the principal sold the note off. The principal
What do you
the,
think when you say the word or hear the word assign, what do you think that means? Go
the
look it
okay, so
up.
I'm gonna tell I'm gonna
It's sold.
come
Yeah.
again.
The
That's
rights
what
the rights are
assignment means.
no assignment means the rights, the contractual rights are
Right,
transferring.
right.
Okay,
But
that
what I'm
doesn't that
saying
doesn't
is, in order
listen.
for you to
But what I'm
have,
saying, hold on.
go
What I'm
ahead, go
saying
ahead, go
that
ahead.
that doesn't
It's a
necessarily.
transaction.
But listen,
You
hold
gotta,
on.
but man, what you gotta
You got to
understand though
separate
is
that.
that an assignment of mortgage, plain and simple, the facts is this, right? An assignment of mortgage can't walk by itself. An assignment of mortgage, 100%, always
That's
got to
right.
be accommodated by a note. If it ain't got
That's
a
right.
note, there is no perfected lien. If it's no
Without the
perfected
note,
lien,
it's a
there is no
horseless
claim.
rider. It's a
Right.
horse. It's a riderless horse.
Okay. So let me just get this
That mean they
understanding.
debt become unsecured and they lien
Mhm.
become unsecured, and therefore that's out of there. They can't even do financial subjugation on the unsecured lien, and most of these banks are operating in that fashion. They never
Now let me
had the
ask you a
note
question
before they
then.
went to the outset of the litigation. That's
Let me
just
ask you a
my,
Yep.
my
question. Let me ask you a question because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in here that's dealing with a mortgage issue, and maybe a first step for each individual person to do their own research and come to their own conclusion. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Definitely.
would it be good for someone to start at their promissory note and their deed, warranty deed, security deed, right, and track who is the nominee or next in line, and then match to see if that was actually recorded in the county. Is that a good first step for people?
I would agree. You want to make sure that stuff's
Okay.
recorded. I agree
Okay.
100% because if
All
it's
right.
not,
So,
if it's not recorded, especially if there's a foreclosure, right? If it's not, if the assignment of mortgage has not been recorded on the record, and if there's not a note, and I can't stress this enough, y'all, if
mm,
if the mortgage in the note, and by the way, this is not my first time taking a bank to court. My first time I took a bank to court, I used my VA. It was SunTrust, and I dogged them out in federal court. That's how I
yeah.
learned. I beat them down. I thought they was gonna bring the best lawyers. They bought rinky dink lawyers,
I have a
right?
question. I have a question. So
Yeah,
when you went to federal, the reason why you went to federal was for the assignment issue, strictly for the assignment issue
I
being
went.
recorded.
The reason I went to federal because I operate in trust. I operate in
Okay.
trust, and when you dealing with a real trust, like what you said earlier about the EIN and all of that, that's correct. When you dealing with a correct irrevocable trust, it's not a
Okay.
revocable. I'm dealing in the irrevocable because they can't take nothing out of irrevocable trust that's set up the right way. I did it
Okay.
in federal court with an irrevocable trust, and them boys had to stand down on their back, and that's
Okay.
on
Now,
God.
question.
Matter of
I
fact,
got a question.
uh huh.
When you signed your mortgage payment, right? Was it done under the trust at inception?
Initially, I did it. I did it with just me in my personal capacity. I
Okay,
did it.
and hold on,
Yeah,
another
yeah,
question
yeah.
and so before you got to the point of any sort of default or you coming in being the aggressor, you had eventually did the proper transfer into that irrevocable trust?
Correct, I did, and you have to do it the proper
Okay.
way.
And,
There
and,
is
and the
no
reason why
other
I
way
ask these
but to do it
questions,
the proper way.
the reason why I ask these questions is just to get some information so people can just better understand what steps you took to get to the point. Because a lot
Right.
of people be like, "Oh, okay, I just signed a mortgage. Okay, let me go to
I tell
federal.
you the
Let
steps I
me,
took.
you know what I'm
Matter of
saying?
fact, I tell
Right?
you. Matter of fact, I tell you the steps I took. This is what I did. When
Mhm.
initially, because I used the VA, so initially, so obviously I had to go in my personal capacity with that because it's the VA loan, so they can see that I'm
Mhm.
the actual veteran, right? So I did it that way. Now, initially, what I did, I took because I got a fourplex. The home that I'm talking about right now with PHH is a fourplex in Cleveland, Ohio, right? So what I did initially, me and an ex business partner of mine, we put it into an LLC, right? He couldn't get his business. I didn't like how he was doing business, so we dissolved the business. But he walked off. We dissolved everything, but since he walked off and left his portion was abandoned. So when it dissolved, I Schedule A'd everything into the trust. And when I Schedule A'd everything into the trust, I took that Schedule A, the certificate of trust. I also took the certificate from the LaRose office of the actual trust, like when it was actually created, and then I took it and put it on the record in North Carolina because my trust is a foreign irrevocable trust to Ohio because it's not statutorily made with Ohio statute. It's
Right.
from North
Okay.
Carolina.
Well,
So I'm just
like
telling you how I
like
did
I
it. Like,
said, yeah, for sure. Like, and I think a lot of people sometimes, like, in these conversations, I like to start at origin. And at that point, people should be taking that first step. A lot of times we don't see origin. We may start at step B, step C, and then we're realizing we're failing because we didn't even see origin. Now, I see origin from accounting, and you're seeing origin from chain of assignment. And I think those are two very good points because that's typically not the mindset that people have. They look at, oh, my origin is a birth certificate trust. My origin is credits, based off the me being weighted in gold and all of these misconceptions. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just advocating. Hold on 1 second. I'm just advocating. I'm just advocating for people taking the time to really just read definitions and get a truly established origin starting point for doing their research, in whatever situation they're going through.
well, I would say for people who really want homes in this situation who can benefit from all of the foreclosures that's going to happen, from all of the people that's going to walk, you definitely 100% need a private foreign irrevocable trust. It don't need to be made in any statutory type of way of these states, and it needs to 100% be just like that. And the thing is that when you have a trust and it's done the correct way and you operating as a trustee, right? When you operating as a trustee with a security agreement, with a declaration of trust, those things, especially your security agreement, because your security agreement is like the administration arm of your private governance of your trust. And that right there is going to cause for a UCC1. What I did there was a financial statement done. In that financial statement, it tells who the debtor is, which in this case would be the trust, the Lonnie Robert Mitchell Trust. It tells who the flesh and blood, who the actual secured party is, who the trustee is, which is myself, right? And then what happened now? And I didn't do my trust myself. I had a company do it for me. I had a company do it, so I knew it would be done the correct way, right? And the company took the UCC1 and had that UCC1 recorded with the Secretary of Florida, with the
Let me ask you
Florida
a
Secure
question.
Registry. Yes, sir. Sure.
How it, are you comfortable disclosing how much you paid in order for
No,
them
of
to
course, man. I'm here to help, man.
just real
At the
quick?
time,
Mhm.
I paid about like $800 and some change,
Okay.
for this trust. I got it from Sovereign Filing Solutions, and
Okay.
the guy is just solid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Brother. So you overstand? You know I ain't lying then.
uh-huh.
Hey, man, that trust is active.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for those that may not have $800, you know what I'm saying, or more to drop under a trust, there's something you can do. You can actually use AI to just actually understand the domestic law hierarchy for trust and the international law hierarchy for trust, okay? Because there are a lot of statutes, there are a lot of codes. A lot of times the trusts are state specific. It is based on how you built it, right? But there are tools where you can get a good understanding as long as you know what you want to do. Like for me, right? My goal was to be able to turn business revenue into principal and have distribution funds to a beneficiary. So that revenue, that leftover revenue after business taxes, becomes trust res. Okay, and property of the trust, right, is not subject to taxation in the way that income is, right? And I'm just want to say, like, whatever you want to do, right, whatever you want to do, right, reverse engineer it. But whatever you do, build on structure and build from authoritative sources. If all you are reading and if all you're getting your knowledge from is another person's PDF, or you are singularly relying on information from one side, which means you have no understanding of what you're doing, and you are relying on the competency of someone who is selling you, you are not in the position that you need to be. And that's where a lot of us make a mistake on, especially when we're under pressure. And I like using AI because I can say, hey, I just want authoritative source documents. I want authoritative source information and make a box. Yeah, that's the same in books, brother. That's the same in books, brother. Hold on, listen to me about. I understand. I understand. Hmm. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying, and I think you're agreeing with me in the fact that I did say authoritative sources, right? So it's like, hey, I can list you right now the U.S. legal authoritative hierarchy. I never recommend someone just go into AI and say, hey, make me an irrevocable dynastic trust and that's impenetrable. No, 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 no. What I say is understand what laws, rules, statutes, codes govern the type of trust that I'm trying to build, whether it's revocable, irrevocable, right? A lot of times people get into AI and they just start asking it to do things. AI is really for pre-programmers, those who know how to build structure. And the same way works for your computer. If you log onto your computer, you're not going to start typing on the desktop because that's not the framework for creating a Word document. You have to go into a program. And that programming aspect is you building the box, you deciding what information qualifies to achieve what you're trying to do. So I can say right now, the hierarchy for any domestic trust is the U.S. Constitution, then the federal statutes and self-executing treaties, then the federal regulations, then the federal common law, then the state constitution, state statutes, state regulations, right? And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times people don't even have a understanding that some of the authoritative sources that they apply to the trust have no binding authority in any court, like restatements. Restatements are purely informational. They have no authority in any court, but we use those. Yeah, yeah. What's up? No, it's impossible because I talked about that earlier. The birth certificate is a record, a unique identifying record that has a number on it in order to establish individuality. So anything that I do can't get mixed with you. That's where we have to start off. If we can stop jumping to the numbers and first understand that the commercial system first has to have a system of accuracy. Then we go
I'm
into
going to
transactions.
interject for a second.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to interject, guys, for a second. So, to answer your question, Chief, the answer is yes, you can. When you do that, you must, the source is you have a QSIP number that is attached to your deed of title, which is a birth certificate. Okay, a birth certificate is a deed of title. There is a QSIP number that is attached to it. When you pull the, I'm, I'm getting ready to tell you. You know I'm thorough, right? You do know who you're talking to, right? You are correct. So you know I'm going to tell you, right? So when you have that QSIP number pulled by a series licensed broker, you want an individual pull, not a pooled pull. Those are two separate, okay? When that QSIP number is pulled, it is going to pull what is called a stock certificate. That stock certificate creates your proof of evidence to show that the individual QSIP pull, again, not a pooled QSIP pull, because pooled is going to be everybody's, right? That was in that collective bushel, if you will. So you want an individual pull. When you do an individual pull by a series licensed broker, and they physically do that, or you can do it on a Bloomberg terminal if you got $24,200 to pay for it, right? Or the $2,000 and change a month for the monthly payment. But you can do either or. You can have a series licensed broker pull it for you, or you can get the Bloomberg terminal, right? One or the other. When you pull that QSIP number, it will be attached to your name. The QSIP number will be there, and typically you can pull one on your social security number as well, okay? When you pull these things, they are now called a stock certificate. That stock certificate, okay, is your proof of evidence to these things specifically. The problem is that people go into court, as I say all the time, and they're saying it's worth this, but you have no proof of evidence. No proof of evidence, right? So you need what is classified as a stock certificate, which will be the QSIP pull for the international, right? The international market. It's going to be for international pulling. Okay. And so in doing so, now you have your proof of evidence. Before we jump into QSIPs, though, I want to jump back into what was specifically spoken about on a starting point for your mortgage. The first thing I need to understand is what is a mortgage, right? When you do this paperwork, what is it? I think it might have been you, Zero, or someone else. I think it might have been Robert, not sure which one. But one of you mentioned the fact that a mortgage, the whole application is not a trust. That is indeed incorrect, okay? Everything you do in operations is a trust. When you initiate that application, that is a trust agreement. So the first thing that needs to come into play is the basic knowledges of how many trusts are there. There are only two types of trust, right? Two types, revocable and irrevocable. And there are thousands of kinds of trust, okay? And so by initiation of application, a trust is created. You become the grantor of said trust. It is a revocable trust, not irrevocable. People allow you to be told that it is irrevocable, i.e. a contract. It is not a contract, it is an agreement. So what are you signing when you sign this physical agreement, right? You're signing, one, as surety. Two, you're signing for a right to set off, which means that you provided them, right, the ability to become the beneficiary in this trust agreement. How do we know it is a trust agreement? Because your physical documents say this, right? Because you went into an implied trust agreement. Your physical documents say that you give beneficial interest to the financial institution that you are allowing to tell you that they're loaning you physical money, right?
Hold on. I
So
got a
when
question.
you wait 1 second, let me finish out for you, and I promise I'll probably answer your question. But I only jump on here real quick. I'm just giving you guys that information. So your starting point is going to be able to understand what is it and what are you dealing with? You're dealing with a physical trust, right? A physical trust. And no, King, I'm not blowing smoke. I'll give you even more information pertaining to that, but I wanted to jump into this and then I'll go back into that because we're going to talk about that with this, right? I land my plane all the time, never worry. So you're dealing with a physical trust. It's revocable, right? They're telling you it's a contract. So they're making it seem that it's irrevocable. So what are you going to do? You're going to challenge them with the fact that it is not a contract being an irrevocable trust, but it is indeed a trust agreement, which means that you have the right to revoke anything that you gave prior, whether it be a power of attorney agreement, whether it be making them beneficiary, because this is why they are able to come because there's a trustee, right? A trustee acts on behalf of the beneficiary. This is how you know it's a trust agreement, right? A trustee acts on behalf of the beneficiary. So in your paperwork that you signed as surety, which is insurance to the trustee over the physical debt, over the physical collateral, excuse me, not debt, over the physical collateral, they have deemed the financial institution and any successor, meaning whoever they sell the mortgage to, stays the beneficiary. This is all in your allonge. This is all attached in your paperwork. That when you created that power of attorney as a trustee to act on your behalf, right? To say that you were incompetent to act on as yourself and you needed them to do all the paperwork for you. When they take that promissory note and send it to the IRS in order to send it to go through Fedwire for the US Treasury to make the payment, right? When they do that, right, they get paid within 45 days. It's a 45-day time period. That's why your payments are due, whether it's a car loan, mortgage loan, any of those things. That is why it's due, right? Why it's due then in 45 days, because it takes them 45 days to physically get the payment on their books. If you do a total forensic loan audit, you will see that that security was already paid by the United States Treasury. Okay. When you see that physically, that's the accounts payable within the full ledger, right? Negative versus two positives. When you do a complete accounting pull, right, for accounts payable versus accounts receivable, statements, and the physical ledger, you're going to see that they were physically already paid. So the first thing you want to get them on is misleading and deceptive practice, maxims of equity, misleading and deceptive practices, antitrust laws. The fact that they're steady telling you that it's a contract when it's a trust agreement, allowing you as the grantor for initiation of application to be able to change and revoke anything that you desire to revoke. Okay, that's one. Two, the next thing you're going to get them on, because they're never going to give you the full accounting, they're never going to provide you any of that, is called non-performance. Once you sit back and you're able to prove misleading and deceptive practices and non-performance, you've built a solid case, not to even have to go into court, but to send it right to the OCC, who is the federal regulators of financial institutions. Because based on the Federal Reserve Act, they have a fiduciary duty, right, to do all of this. They're supposed to provide you to all of this information as the fiduciary. So when you have this information, okay, you now take it all to the OCC. They're going to start an investigation. And based on RESPA, you will then get a check, right? After they do the investigation. It can take some time, by the way. The building of the case can take some time as well. But now you get a check up to 10% based on RESPA laws. Excuse me, up to 10 times the amount of the original loan, right? And then you put into there your other factors, which is TILA, and then you get up to 3 times the amount of which you've already paid into the physical mortgage. Okay. So you use these ax trees and addresses to assist you, but that's your starting point, is understanding that it is indeed a trust and that they're telling you that it's a irrevocable trust when it is not an irrevocable trust. It's a revocable trust. Okay. It's revocable, which allows you to revoke power of attorney to whom you gave it to, or it allows you to now give them better instructions as a trustee, right? Because that power of attorney became a trustee. It allows you to revoke who was listed as beneficiary and make yourself one and no longer being surety. It allows you to do these various things, but they don't want you to know that. So if they don't want you to know that, that's classified as misleading and deceptive practices, right? And the fact that they're not going to provide you anything you ask for provides non-performance. Non-performance is void of contract and trust agreement.
So
Right.
I'm just
I gave you multiple sources. I told you to read the Federal Reserve Act, especially Section 29. I told you to read RESPA, right? The Real Estate Act. I also told you to read that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, RESPA, that's
But
for real estate.
if right, that's real estate. If you don't know what RESPA is, well, we got Google for it, Chief. Come on now. I'm not going to sit
Well,
here and hold
I
your
think
hand.
You gotta know what RESPA is if you're in real estate, though.
RESPA, right? RESPA, RESPA, right? And no, I
No,
didn't
no, we
say
don't
that
think you
you
a fool,
were.
brother. We don't
That's
think you
not
a
what I
fool.
said. No,
We didn't
Chief.
say that. Yeah.
You know I don't do anything personal that way.
Add to what she's
mm,
saying.
What I gave you the references. I told you go
what
to the Federal Reserve Act, right? Read RESPA, right? Go to the OCC site and you will see everything you need in order to start a actual investigation. Office,
well
no, where you put an OCC and I said they regulate financial institutions, you would know it's the Office of Currency and Comptroller, right?
Exactly.
So
That's the
OCC,
comptroller. That's the comptroller.
it's
but
just
here's the thing though.
putting it into Google, right? Like this is, we have to allow people, but you narrow it down for what purpose? What are we doing here? What are we talking about?
Can I add
Office
to
of
what Dr.
Comptroller,
Honey's saying?
the Office of Comptroller of Currency, okay, Office of Comptroller of Currency. But Chief, I think that the issue was the proving of the source information pertaining to the birth certificate having value, okay. And when I listened very carefully and I took some notes, okay, it says the dealer, from what you're saying, Dr. Honey, the dealer deals with stocks, okay. And when you're talking about a stock, you're automatically on the investor side. Yes, certificate holders, the stock certificate holder is tied to the QSIP, but they have to track the origination. The reason why we see our names or have the potential to see our names in some form of fashion in these tranches or individually is because they still have to tie specifically, even when they bundle it, what note was bought by what investor. Okay. That does not mean the birth certificate has value. That means that the birth certificate is a record. And now that record holds a transaction. And as it moves down the pipeline from originator to creditor to trust to investor via a broker who securitizes it, assigns it a QSIP number, sells it as a class A, B, or C, they still have to track origination back to the record, not origination back to value. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, your question was the authoritative source to show that the birth certificate has monetary value. Is that correct? Yes or no? Okay. And that's all I'm saying. There is no authoritative source. There's no authoritative source to show that the. Okay. Mhm. Yes, they can track the record. They can track the record. That does not mean that the record has value. The transaction has value. Okay. And people are not separating record from transaction. Okay. They have to be able, like, even any like origination. Origin is always important. It just doesn't poof out of nowhere. It always has to go to some sort of person, trust person, natural person, juridical person, right? So there's a lot of misconception about a name having value. A name is just a record, a system of accuracy. And if we can start where we're not focusing on the zeros and ones and just looking at it from a system of accuracy, we can dispel a lot of these misconceptions concerning, oh, there's
Hold on, hold on. I
money in
got a
the.
question. I got a question though. I do.
Yeah, yeah. No. Let me tell you
But
something. Let
hold
me tell
on
you
now.
something.
At one point,
The
at one
unique
point, y'all. At one
identifying
point,
number. Mm. Okay, go ahead.
at
Go
one
ahead.
point, at one point, and this was like a good little bit back when people would have some litigations with the court, and this was like a while back. They would bring their birth certificate into the court to get whatever issue to be discharged off that birth certificate, and that's a real thing. That's not something I'm making up. Now,
Yeah, they can bring anything they want into the courts. The matter is like, are they actually following procedural law,
what? No, no.
right?
This is no.
Or
This is no. This is what
Mhm.
I'm saying, brother. It used to be a point in time. Like for example, let's say if like I had a speeding ticket, just as an example, right? That,
Mhm.
and I wasn't alive in this time, but I did read about it, right?
Mhm.
But from my small research on it, there was a time where if there was payment that needed to be given to the court for whatever violation it was, they could bring their birth certificate to the court, and the court would discharge it based off the birth certificate.
Let me tell you something, brother. There's we
And this is
always
and
get
this
these
is and this is
stories from.
something
Wait
else.
a second,
This
hold on, bro. Wait a second. Respectfully, that we always
apologies,
get these
apologies.
sources from someone that knows someone that knows someone, and
Well, ask
and
Yusef
and and
L.
mysterious.
Yusef L is on y'all. Yusef L
But
is on y'all panel. He the
no,
best
no, no.
person to
Listen,
talk to.
but listen, but no, but what I'm saying, like we have to just simply respect, right? That a lot of the crap in our community is a lot of misconception, and the source of a lot of misconception is based on that we thinking that the constitutional trust to protect our rights somehow transfers directly into a birth certificate and a social security number used to identify you publicly in commerce. I don't, and I'm pretty sure when you really get down to the meat and potatoes and you actually see what was recorded and what's going on, you'll find that all this stuff is a bunch of malarkey.
Can
Okay,
I
No, no, I don't.
procedural
I don't
law.
think that's.
can I
I don't think that's.
interject?
Hold up. I don't think that's malarkey for the mere fact. You got to understand what's going on. Like what the lady said, everything's in trust. When you dealing with the birth certificate, this state made entity, right? It's actually showing, in fact, that you are a beneficiary. You're supposed to be benefiting. You're supposed to be benefiting from using your driving license if you got one. You're supposed to benefit from having a
Yeah,
birth certificate. You're supposed to be
yeah.
Wait,
benefiting.
You have the
hold on.
benefit of
Listen, when
contracting.
you
Listen,
have
we have
something,
wait. Okay,
when
go
you
ahead.
have something that's created with your name on it, it's named after you. It's called your namesake. It's for your sake.
It's no different than Monopoly. Hey, in order for you to play this commerce game, which is this white board standing in front of us, you need a piece. Okay, so that means everybody plays fairly. You can't just reach your
That's
hand into the money bank, right, and grab stuff and then just arbitrarily start buying property on this board, and you don't have a piece for interfacing. Okay, the reality is when we're born, we're giving simply public identification for us to participate. Now we don't have to stick with that piece. We don't have to. Most of us do, but the reality is we can't separate trust from what's used to protect our rights versus a entity used in order to engage in commerce in transactions.
commerce,
We
exactly.
we miss those
Can I
things all the time, man.
can I
We
enter?
miss them all the time.
I wanted to interject a little bit. I was sitting here. I'm really not exactly sure. Somebody called me over here again, and I came in on the conversation, we all talking about RESPA and TILA violations. So are we talking about real estate? What is it exactly are y'all talking
No,
about?
Chief's question was, is there any authoritative source to show that the birth certificate has some sort of monetary value?
No,
Am I,
there is no
oh, oh,
authoritative
now,
source
now, now
that
hold
will
on.
demonstrate that the birth certificate has value. And I have to agree with Zero State. Let me tell you something. I've been doing this for 20 years. You can find articles of me on the internet where I was discharging mortgages back in 2010 through 2013. And as well as the fact that all these RESPA, TILA violations, rescissions, there's anything that you want to discuss about mortgages, about the DTC, Depository Trust Corporation, because allegedly the birth certificate goes from vital statistics to the Department of Commerce, to the Department of Treasury, to the DTC, Depository Trust Corporation, to a holding company called Seed Corporation, which is CEDE, which is the holding company for the Depository Trust Corporation, as well as the fact that I'm sure many of you don't even know, haven't even heard of Seed Corporation, but that is a holding company for the DTC, and Seed happens to mean to relinquish. Okay, now for a lot of time, long time, people have been trying to monetize the birth certificate. If anybody's ever done a secure party process and you see the bond is $100 million, that's because people are trying to put it on a trading platform, a private placement trading platform to try to monetize it. Monetization is a lot involved in it, but I'm going to answer the question. First of all, the gentleman is correct. A lot of the stuff that circulates in these echo chambers is bullshit. Tony King was very prominent back in 2010, and I have all his information if anybody wants it, on how to go to the DTC and monetize these birth certificates and all the things that you were talking about. It's very, very prominent back in 2010. But there, and Drella, somebody just posted Drella, this white lady who stole my international bill of exchange. She's still on YouTube talking about birth certificate that's worth millions of dollars. That's some bullshit. None in my 20 years of doing this, and I have been doing this for 20 years. Everybody has been saying the same thing, and nobody's ever demonstrated anything in 20 years. And that's all I'm going to say on it. I'm not even going to get into a long diatribe about it. But he's absolutely right to ask for authority, and I'll just put my 2 cents in right here. The problem I see in these echo chambers, especially as it relates to trust, because I haven't heard now, the lady who was just talking about a trust, she don't know anything about trust. That's not even how trust operates. I do trust class. I'm a professional, and I have a school, and I teach trust law every day. And you can, any of my students on here right now can attest that we learn from case law, because there's only 2 ways to learn trust. You have a good mentor, and you got to read a lot of case law, and you have to put in 10,000 hours. And I haven't heard anyone on any of these calls who have done that, who put in their 10,000 hours so they could represent being an expert in anything. All right, so you need to stop. Y'all get into these discussions. I don't hear any laws. I don't hear any cases. I don't hear principles of law being discussed. I don't see any demonstration that somebody understands the difference between public law and private law, anything like that, or contract law, or trust law, or commercial law. I hear no mention of the Uniform Commercial Code. Does anybody know what a holder new course is versus a holder? Does anybody know what a claim to an instrument is? Is UCC 3-306, or claim in recoupment, which is UCC 3-305? Does anybody in here know anything about the UCC, since we're talking about negotiable instruments and securitizations? Is anybody in here proficient in Article 3 of the UCC and Article 9 with secure transactions and Article 8 with securities? Anybody? You know, I hear a
Yeah,
lot of people talking about
I understand the
securitization.
separate.
I hear people
Well,
talk
just
about
answer. Mhm.
securitization. How many of you in here have conducted the securitization audit before?
Yeah, like I pay someone to do that stuff, but
I've done
I
that
try
way
to
back
give.
in 2010, my
I
brother. I
get
did
it.
it for 3 years straight. So I
Yeah.
listened to a lot of these
Mhm.
things people say, and listen, y'all, I'm gonna leave because I'm gonna let y'all get back to what you were doing. But I'm gonna leave you with this. Okay. You are regurgitating a lot of it. This is what happens. The things that y'all have saying are saying have been said since 1986. Well, securitization came in, I was saying, around like late 1980s, 1990s. You have the American Securitization Forum. The president of that, he's the one who created it, and MERS, Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, and so forth. It got created. But let me just tell you this. What happens is you have gurus who come, they get very big, and they put out a lot of information, and then they either get arrested or disappear, and you don't hear from them anymore. The next generation comes in, forgets all about them. You go to places like Scrib, dig up a whole bunch of information, and all this old information and start regurgitating, and it's just the same thing all over again. Because I'm going to tell you what it is that I see that you do. A lot of you do not want to commit to real study of the law. You're lazy. And that's all I'm going to say. Y'all have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll give them one more further
Man,
to
y'all
that.
love going to court.
First of
You
all,
ain't even.
this whole concept of what a person is inaccurate. A person breaks down into a classification. Okay, they use persons to attach liability and duties in the public. The main thing that I see from everybody in all these echo chambers, they don't understand the difference between public law and private law. You have something called private ordering. Okay, your rights are on the private side, and private side, your tools of trade on the private side are contracts, private trusts, private member associations, or unincorporated private associations. That's all you have to do to deal with. Private rights begin where public regulation ends. Okay, you cannot disrespect the public because they have a delegation of authority from their state and federal constitutions. So if you don't understand the Constitution, you don't understand separation of powers, you don't understand delegation of powers doctrine, you don't understand what plenary power doctrine is, then you're not going to understand the Constitution and you're not going to understand the application of statutes. Okay, as far as yes, when you present evidence in court, yes, you do have to prove everything you're going to say, but hearsay is admissible if it's not objected to. Do you know how to form an objection? Do you know how to preserve in a record for appellate purposes? Do you know what a de novo review is? Do you understand that when they do an appeal, they only do a procedural review of all the elements of the lower court? Do you understand any of these things? You gotta, if y'all gonna do this in these echo chambers, you need to get real and start studying real law. What they used to do back in the beginning in the 1700s, what they would do is they would go to pubs and they would challenge each other, and iron sharpens iron on points of law. Today, y'all just discuss points of speculation and theory that cannot be
I have a
substantiated.
question. I have a question, Yusuf.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, so when you came into this community, do you think that a lot of your teachings originally was based on misconceptions as well?
Yes, they were. But that's the thing about it. If you're going to grow,
Okay, hold on.
hold on,
Just hold on. I just need you to answer that question
Let
for
me
me.
answer the question. Let me answer the question. Okay, I came in just like all of you. I didn't know any of this, but I learned this in jail. So I wasn't influenced by individuals. I had to go to the law library and study. Okay, I didn't have somebody in my ear telling me what this was, what that, because I wasn't sure if it was accurate. And the things that were inaccurate that I believed in were the things that were told to me that I did not confirm on my own research. For instance, like right to travel being commercial. Somebody told me that, but when I did a deep dive and did my own research, I found that that's not the issue. But the thing about growing is if you can't admit that you're wrong, then yes, you will never grow because it's mathematically impossible to grow and you can't acknowledge that you're incorrect.
Okay, and that's what I'm coming in here and
And
saying.
you are. I'm listening to you.
People
You're
do
out of
not.
everybody I'm listening to, I like what you're saying. Out of everybody I just
Yeah,
listened to, I like what you
I
can say. But go ahead.
I know you come into the echo chambers a lot, and I have the same grievances with the definitions. People don't read the definitions, and people don't understand that you can have the exact same word in a different jurisdiction, and it has a completely or slightly different meaning. Okay, and my only contention was that she came up here and she did not answer Chief Justice's question. She said, go to the broker. You can look up the broker. The broker
Something
has
that
the
has been
ability
something
to
that's been
file the QSIP.
regurgitated. something that's been regurgitated for like the last 15 years. I can show you the people who all said that. I can show
Yeah,
you where she got all that shit from. Yeah, I mean, I can
yeah.
show. I've been doing. Listen, man, I've been doing this 20 years, and I've been on the internet the whole time. I'm the last, really. I'm the last that y'all have from the old generations, and you need to take advantage because I've seen how everything has changed over time. I was doing this when there was no social media. So I've watched this the internet radio come in when we were listening to Talk Shoe and Blog Talk. Then it switched to YouTube. I remember when Joanna made that your birth certificate is worth $1 billion, and made all that money and then dipped out and shit. You know, it just a lot of the things that I've seen. I just got a lot of history, and so I just listen. What y'all are doing is y'all are regurgitating information from the last generation that, quite frankly, got a lot of people locked up. You know how I've stayed out of jail so long? Why I'm the last one standing? Because every time a guru gets arrested, I go read his case. I go read his case to see why he got arrested. None of you do that. None of you do that. Y'all don't read the cases or anything. I go actually read the entire case, see what he got arrested for, and I'm gonna tell you what's the main thing. The main thing they get arrested for is tax evasion. That's the main thing.
That's right.
That's the
Hmm.
main thing. But
You can really
it's like,
do.
hey, y'all don't have
I'm
to
a
listen to
big
me. You
proponent
don't have to
of
listen to
those.
me. Listen, I gotta go. I gotta go. Okay, okay, now let me just say this, because that you pulled some articles, probably some attorney wrote on the internet. Okay, let me give you some clarification. Everybody listen, I'm going to give you the history and the story of what's really going on with the birth certificate. Okay. The first process that was ever created in any of this was a secure party process, and it was a result of HJR 192 of June 5th, 1933, Public Law 73-10, as well as the fact that's been codified at Title 31, 5118, rescission of the gold clause in gold contracts. Some standing case law that you can read is Perry versus the United States. That's a very good case law that you should read. Now, what happened after that? The birth certificate is not, you don't look at the birth certificate as worth anything. The birth certificate is simply evidence that somebody is alive. Okay, once you establish somebody is alive, that person has a value. That's why they have a minimum wage. Okay, when you get to an actuary table, okay, where they can calculate your value of your labor from the time you start working to the time you retire. And they came up with an estimate of around $600,000. And this is how the federal government can go to the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, and borrow money off of that and promise the future pay. The full faith and credit of the United States is supported by the future labor of the citizens of the country. So the reason why you are getting a birth certificate is not that it is a bond or it has value. It is only to demonstrate that you are the recipient of it. You've demonstrated that it is a real living soul, and the only thing that has value in the public is labor, because everybody in the public is bankrupt. They are a bankrupt entity. So value is being derived from the private side, which is called substance. All right. There is no substance in the public. This is the reason why you do the status correction to rebut any presumptions that you're an acceptor of benefits and privileges, thus beholding to the public, but you are a full-fledged man in the private. And this is what we used to say, that you can demonstrate that you're more than competent enough to handle your own commercial affairs. Because the presumption is that you're incompetent, because the whole purpose behind HJR 182 of June 5th, 1933 was the New Deal under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because you had to go to him because you couldn't take care of yourself. And that was the creation of the welfare state. No one on here who is trying to do any of these processes should have anything to do with the Democratic Party. because that's a socialist, Marxist party, and it is contrary to everything the United States is about. And Marxism, the whole purpose of Marxism is destruction of private property, which all of you are on here supposed to be defending. So we have an issue with basic civic education as well. Go ahead. Okay. You can't substantiate, I'm just saying this is the theory behind that. You can't substantiate any of that, but that's where all this derived from. And then y'all took the birth certificate because you don't have that knowledge and all of a sudden start saying, well, the birth certificate is worth $1 billion and all. It's never been that the birth certificate was a negotiable instrument or had any value or anything like that. It was the value that the man provides through labor. That's where value is coming through labor. And either they are monetizing your labor. All right, go ahead. Okay.
That's
Okay.
the
All
thing.
right. All right. So let me say this, okay, because I've heard all that before. Okay, we're going to start with your definition of slavery. First of all, can we read the 13th Amendment? Because let's get some proper context. All right. Let's read the 13th Amendment. And then we're going to go to Black's Law, Black's Law, and we're going to read the definition. So first, I'm going to start with the definition: neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist anywhere in the United States. Okay, now when you go to a Black's Law, so it didn't eliminate slavery. Slavery just moved to the prison industrial complex, and also voluntary servitude is permissible. It says involuntary servitude. It doesn't say anything about voluntary servitude. So peony. So that's number one. Number two, when you get a Black's Law dictionary and you look up the definition of slavery in the expert commentary, it's going to tell you that the original constitutional makers and the abolitionists and the slaveholders had a disagreement. Okay, so they had to make a compromise. And so what they did was they compromised that they would never use the word slave anymore. But the Constitution protects the peculiar institution. Anyone out there educated knows that peculiar institution is another word for slavery. So the Constitution protects slavery. It never got rid of it. And you can read it yourself and see that.
It
moved
just
it to
changed the it just
it
changed the
moved
perception of it.
they changed the perception of it and they said we can never use. So that's why you don't see. So what do they use? They use the word employee, inmate, taxpayer. They
Right,
use
right,
all those
right,
words in
right.
place of the word slave. It's just they can't use that word anymore. So let's get some clarification on that. All right. The next thing is this. Yes, you are the sovereigns of the country, but your sovereignty only extends in the private. You gave a portion of your sovereignty to the public when you made a constitution for the United States as well as the state constitutions. They have a delegation of authority. I want everybody to write down the word plenary power. Okay, let's get some basic civics. The first thing is you have to understand separation of powers. Okay, Chisholm versus Georgia is the first constitutional Supreme Court case that establishes that we are the sovereigns. Yes, we are the sovereigns, but our sovereignty is protected through 5 different places in the Constitution. The main one being Article 1, Section 10, which is the contract clause. Okay, so if you have your rights are protected through contract, and it can only be enforced in contract. As a matter of fact, I just saw a general say that. He said the civilians don't understand that their rights can only be enforced through contract. Okay, so contract is what protects you, but you cannot make a contract that goes against public policy. Okay, public and private does not mix. The problem what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish private rights because they don't use the word sovereignty in the Constitution. That word's not in the Constitution. The word is
Nah.
private. Okay, so you're trying to assert private rights in a public regulatory space. And that's where you're wrong, and that is an evidence that you don't understand basic civics here in this country. There's a word called private ordering. Everybody Google that word for me right now and tell me whether or
Hey,
not that's not the same thing.
Yusef,
Well, hold on,
can you please?
hold on. Look up the word private ordering and tell me if you look that word up, because I see y'all don't like to look up the definition of words because y'all run around talking about Sestake Trust. And that just means a beneficiary. That's the most idiotic shit that y'all saying on the internet. Trying to sound intelligent and you sound dumb. Look up the word private ordering. They find a word and just start using it like, the Sestake Trust, when I implement it
Yeah,
into
you
the
do gotta
basket
you do
side
gotta
of
look
the
it up
private
though.
side, and we reticulate it back and transmitting utility into the rest of into the tranche that incorporates into the DTC, and therein you have your remedy, my brother. Did you not just understand what I said? Fuck you talking about? See, that shit get over on new people.
Right.
It's not gonna get over on me. As you see, people started getting out of Dodge when I got on the mic because the sheriff is here.
No, I wouldn't say that, bro. Don't get too
I know
crazy,
some
bro.
people got off the motherfucking mic. I ain't talking about
No,
you, but go ahead. Y'all go
no,
ahead,
I
ask your
want.
question. You can ask me any question you want to.
I'm gonna read something and I'm gonna see
All
what you
right, go
think
ahead.
about this.
All right,
All
go
right,
ahead.
it's really short. House joins Resolution 192, 1933. Okay,
Yeah.
HJR 192 declared that obligations requiring payment in gold could be discharged by payment in legal tender. Before 1933, many contracts, including bonds and mortgages, required payment in gold or in a specific amount of gold. During the banking crisis, the Federal Reserve suspended gold convertibility and restricted private gold ownership. If gold clauses had remained enforceable, creditors could have demanded payment in gold, undermining monetary stabilization efforts. So the practical terms of HJR 192 was to stabilize the monetary system, prevent contract enforcement that would drain gold reserves, and to ensure that debts could be satisfied using lawful
Okay,
currency
brother. I
rather
just
than
told you
gold.
When
to read. I
when
just told
when
you to
they
read Perry
took the
versus. I
gold,
know
No,
all
no,
that.
no,
What's
no,
your
no, no,
question?
no, hold on.
What's your question? I know all that.
No, no, I wanted to read it and I wanted to see your interpretation and understanding of that
Well,
HJR
I just
192 because
explained to you it was a rescission of the gold clause in gold contracts. And so when you read Perry versus the United States, what Perry did, he had a gold contract and he tried to redeem his gold and he got rejected. This was about 1935. And that passed in 1933. So here's another problem which y'all don't do. Y'all read stuff like that, but you won't read the case to get a full understanding and get everything in its proper context. But I'll explain it to you. Okay, the
so what I
contract
said,
part.
hold on, hold on a second.
And
Hold on, hold on a
let me
second. So what,
finish.
but hold on, I need some clarification. So what you're saying that what I just read was incorrect.
No, I didn't say that. And why do y'all
Oh,
do
okay.
that? I agree with you. You just repeated what I said. You weren't listening to me.
Okay, but then
I
how
told
does
you.
that
I told you
translate
that
to?
same. I told you that
Okay.
same thing. I said
Mm.
Perry versus United States and ACR 182 removed gold clauses in gold contracts, and it's been codified. See, that's a resolution. It's been codified in Title 31 5118. That's where it's codified at. That's just a resolution. That's not a law you're reading.
that's not a law. That
John,
resolutions is not law.
Yeah, it's a resolution. So when you go to Title 31 5118, that's where you're going to find it at. Okay, that's where they codified it at. Okay, so yes, so this is what they did. They removed gold and silver, that was the biggest thing because it prevented you from engaging in private transactions. Okay,
Right.
so now gold is only gold and silver can be constitutionally used to discharge debt. So to make it constitutional, they had to create a monetary system within a territorial jurisdiction. That is what is outlined in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. So they made a Federal Reserve Act, which Congress promulgated, and then they invited all of you in to participate with a social security number. And then they called it a democracy. Okay, the republic requires gold and silver. That's the private domain. Now, what you're doing, every time you try to discharge a debt, you're making a claim against HCR 192. But the thing about it is you have not established a duty on them to do that, because you can't make an equitable claim against the government without their consent. Everybody Google that right now. Can you make an equitable claim against the government without their consent?
No, because it's a commercial contract.
No, it doesn't have anything to do with commerce. It don't have anything to do with commerce. It has everything to do with, wait on. It has everything to do with separation of, wait a minute, I'm going to explain why you can't. It has everything to do with separation of powers. We have the judiciary.
Priya, calm down.
Can somebody turn off their mic?
Yo.
No noise in the back. How can y'all hear anything without that noise? The thing about it is you have separation of powers. That's a political question. Congress and the executive branch are the political branches, and the judiciary has to defer to them. All right, so the monetary policy is under Article 1, and they have plenary power. This is what I mean when I say you have to understand plenary power doctrine. Okay, each of the individual branches cannot go against
They can't cross each other.
Yeah, it can't cross each other. So the reason you can't make that claim is that what the judiciary is saying, well, look, that's not within our jurisdiction. That is in Congress, and they can do whatever they want because they have plenary power. They have control of the monetary system. This is why when you do a secure party process, your first step is you got to contract with them. You don't try to discharge any debt, send any bonds or anything like that till you send them notices. Everything is based off notice, and your only real remedy or any type of play that you got is the fact that there isn't any money. There's 4 rules.
No, I have a question. What is this contract though you speak of? What is this contract?
So do you understand contract? Wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Do you understand contract law?
No. There's so much to know about contract law. I just want to know about contract.
There's only 2 categories
that you talked about.
There's only 2 categories of contract law. There's express contracts and implied contracts.
Yep.
Okay, there isn't unilateral contract. There isn't bilateral contract.
They all fall under the 2 major categories, or express
They
and
fall
implied.
under
Okay, so my question is, are you, and this is just clarifying, are you implying that the birth certificate is some sort of contract?
No, I'm not saying that. Why do you keep saying that? Why do you keep trying to put words?
I didn't say that. I didn't put words in my mouth. I asked a question.
When y'all phrase questions like, so you're saying that, I didn't say a motherfucking thing.
He didn't say that.
He did.
I didn't say a motherfucking thing. All right?
Are you implying? Are you implying? You gotta listen to my words.
No, he's
I
not
said implying.
that either.
No, he's not implying it either.
Hold on. Wait,
Okay, then
Where
listen.
did you get the implication from? Tell me how you reach that inference.
Because you said you talked about a contract, right? I asked you what contract are you talking about. You then said, well, let me ask. Wait. You then said you asked me, do you know what contract law is? Which is a pivot from my question. I just wanted to know. In that moment, you said something about a contract that we're under.
The question is just when I answer the question, I'm going to see the level of whether or not you're going to be able to receive what I'm going to say to you.
No, trust me. I can receive what you're saying because I look at everything from contract. I respect definitions.
Okay, all right. Well, then you understand. And what is implied contracts based off of? It's one word. What is implied contracts based off of? It's one word. What's one word that implied contracts are based off of?
Verbal?
No, they're based off conduct, which everything in law is actions speak louder than words. Everybody put it in their chat GPT. Does the law favor actions over words?
Okay, but you still didn't answer my question. So what contract were you now? Like I have short-term memory now because I asked the question, what specific contract were you talking about?
Well, brother, I'm going to answer your question, but the first thing is I have to frame it so you can understand it. The contract is when you send a correspondence to the Treasury Department, okay, you're giving notice. The notice is, first of all, the reason you're giving the notice is, first of all, to avoid any type of mens rea. which is criminal intent. Okay, you can't be saying somebody did something criminal if you gave them notice and gave them opportunity to respond. The notice that you're sending to the Treasury Department is, first of all, understand that I'm a private citizen. I'm no longer interested in taking benefits and privileges of the government, which is what that Social Security number represents.
Okay,
Okay,
so you say we have a contract with the
I
government.
can't
We have a
answer the
contract
question
with
if
the
you're gonna
treasury.
keep on interrupting me, brother. How long have you been doing?
But
Let me ask you a question.
I just
How
need
long
a
have you been
simple
doing?
answer first. I
How
just need a
long have
simple
you been
answer.
doing?
What's the
If I can't
contract
answer
with
the
the
question,
treasury?
you're going to because I'm not answering the question just for you. I'm educating everybody else. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to listen. You don't know nothing, as a matter of
Thank you.
fact.
Thank you.
You don't know shit. And let me say this to you. I was just like you. When I started off, because you're intelligent, but you don't know shit. And you're arrogant. If you listen, you can find out some things. You're intelligent. You're more than capable of mastering this subject, but you got to get a hold of that ego. I've been doing this 20 years. There's nothing you can say to me to educate me about shit, because I done read everything you're talking about 100 times. What I'm saying to you is this. When you send a package to the Treasury Department, this is based off of you giving notice. You send it as
That was just
certified or
me.
registered mail.
Hold on.
Okay, and they have a duty to respond to you. You're giving them 30 days to respond. And essentially your package contains first, and you can put it together however you want to. Your package is, first of all, you establishing that you're a private citizen and you're no longer a recipient of benefits and privileges. All right, because you can't be private and take benefits and privileges. Since you want some backing, it's something called the Ashwander Rules. Anybody in here familiar with that? Ashwander Rules is the 7 rules that the Supreme Court looks at first before they'll issue a certiorari for anything for them to take cognizance of. And number 6 says they will not listen to you if you are receiving a benefit and privilege. You can't assert a private right and simultaneously be an acceptor of benefits and privileges. You can't assert a constitutional challenge. The Constitution only protects private people, private rights. That's what the Supreme Court is. They're the defenders of private rights. Okay, and they keep the other 2 branches in check to make sure they don't encroach into the private. Your problem is you don't know where the private is. You don't know where it is. Y'all asserting it. You think you can assert privacy instead of conduct your affairs privately. Private has to be maintained. It's not an assertion or a declaration. That's why I just told you
In
about
legal
private.
context, listen, in legal context, a private citizen does not hold an official government position or act in any sort of official capacity. And so back to what I was saying, I was trying to
Okay, so what I
understand.
just said, and I
Wait,
just
wait,
told
wait.
you,
I just
you
wanted
just
to
repeated, you
understand.
just repeating what I
No,
said.
I didn't repeat. No, but listen to me. I want to understand what contract are you trying to address with the U.S. Treasury? That's what I want to understand. What's the
Okay,
contract?
and I just said, do you understand implied contracts? Put it in
Yes.
your okay. Well,
I
put it
understand
okay.
that by
Now
performance, right?
hold
By
on,
performance.
hold on.
You're
I want
using the
you.
name.
Can I finish? Read me the definition of implied contract to everybody. We educating everybody. Read me the definition because you say
No,
no.
you read it. You read it.
You don't want to read the definition of implied
Read it.
contract?
No,
Okay,
you read it. You
you
read
read
it.
it. You
Zero.
read it.
You know so motherfucking much. You read it.
It's not about knowing so much. I'm asking questions.
That's
I'm
fine.
No,
asking
There's
a
nothing,
he's
simple.
trying to.
I'm asking a
No,
there's
simple
he's
nothing
question.
trying
wrong
I
to.
didn't
with it.
challenge. Hey, look. Did
You're
you not
only
explain?
listening.
Whoa. Did
You're
you not
only
explain?
listening to disparage and
Listen.
challenge. You're not listening
No,
to
I'm
learn
That's
not.
what he
something.
No,
is, and
no,
he
no,
gonna fail
no, no,
because
no, no, no.
he about to make me go into overdrive, and I'm gonna crush him because he don't understand. I'm battle tested. I've been doing this for 20 years. You know how many people I didn't talk to talk like you? An implied contract is a legally binding obligation created by the actions, conduct, or circumstances of the parties involved, rather than a written or spoken word. One of the things that a lot of you have, you only concentrate on express contracts. I don't hear any of y'all talk about implied contracts. Y'all act like there's only one kind of contract. It has to be written down on a piece of paper. Let me read it again. An implied contract is a legally binding obligation created by the actions, conduct, or circumstances of the parties involved, rather than written or spoken words. The contract, my brother, if you're still listening, is when you send that correspondence, certified or registered mail to the Treasury Department, waiting and waiting for a response, and their silence is acquiescence, what they call tacit appropriation, and you given proper notice on the UCC 1-202. Where'd he go? Why y'all take him out? Put him back on. Don't bring him back. Don't have to take him out. Put him back on. Don't take him
Okay,
out.
we gotta see
Don't
if you
take
see
him
him
out.
come down. Hold on.
I don't take him out.
You
Put
can
him
drop.
back
You can
on.
drop. You can drop me,
Hold
Freezer.
on.
He can come back up. You can drop me.
Yeah, you bring him back in. You
Down.
ain't got
Okay.
a problem.
All
I
right.
done
If you
talked to
get
a
quiet,
million
I'll drop
dudes
people
like
down.
this. A million dudes. If you'll just pause and listen. See, the thing about it, they think because they've been doing it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Let me tell you something. If you've been doing this 3 years, you're just functionally literate. Functionally literate. There's a woman on here right now. She's been with me. There's only one person. Her name is T. T, how long have you been knowing me?
Over 20 years.
How long have I been doing this?
Over 20 years.
Okay, what did you used to do for me back in the day?
I was your notary during the foreclosure crisis in 2008, 2010.
Okay, thank you. All
And
right.
T is sharp too. I listened to her.
She got out of prison. She got
I
herself out
know
of
it.
prison. She got
I'm
herself
trying
out
to
of prison.
understand from a legal definition perspective. A legal citizen is defined as someone who does not hold an official government position or acting in a official capacity for the government for the government for the government for the government for the government
I
position,
can't
right?
explain that.
Then
I
you're
can't explain.
automatically
Let
a
me tell you
private
something,
citizen.
bro. Silas is mine because you are ignorant, and I'm gonna tell
No,
you
I'm
when
not.
you're
I just
ignorant.
read a definition.
No, I understand the definition is absolutely correct. What you don't understand is you don't know the difference between public and private. Private rights begin where public regulation ends. Okay? Okay, do you understand that? Private rights begin where public regulation ends. You should write that down. Now, it really should answer your question for you, but
Yeah, it do.
private
So when you
rights
go to the
begin
treasury, right,
where
and
public
you're doing an
regulation
administrative
ends.
process, what's the goal then? Let's just say you're born, right? Let's say you're born, you don't sign a contract, and you don't sign a contract, you don't hold a public office, right?
Yeah.
And let's just say you want to send an administrative process to the treasury. What are you
Right.
trying to accomplish at that point?
What
The
you're trying to
parents signed the contract.
wait a minute, I'll explain it to him. What you are establishing is value. First of all, there isn't any money. You live in a debt-based system, which means that debt is money. So everyone is looking for a way to create money through debt. That's what your banks are doing. That's what liens are for. Liens create an obligation. And listen to me because I'm getting around to your question. Okay, a lien creates an obligation that establishes value. Anybody in here familiar with the discount note market? Okay, what that is that let's say you got a mortgage for $100,000, and let's say you do owner finance for $100,000, and everybody's paying their mortgage like $1,000 a month. But then you get tired and you need an influx of cash, so you go and shop your mortgage to someone, you discount it. So okay, say, look, I got this dude is paying me for the next 30 years $100,000 at 7% interest. I'm gonna discount that for you. Give me $75,000, and I'll give you the $100,000 loan plus 7% interest. That's what banks do. That is how. That's why 1 minute you may be paying your mortgage to Bank of America, and then next to Chase or somebody like that, because they sell loans all the time by discounting them to get an influx of cash. Now, why am I telling you this? Okay, there isn't any money. Debt is being used for money. Okay, so when we send them this package, the agreement is we're giving them notice. Okay, we understand that there isn't any money or anything of value circulating. This is what you got to understand is there isn't any money. If you don't understand this, read the affidavit of Walker Todd. He's an attorney. He was an expert witness for the Federal Reserve. He worked for the Federal Reserve Bank. Anybody can Google this right now on the internet, the affidavit of Walker Todd. As a matter of fact, if you're involved in some sort of case, which is a vapor money theory, you should have that as an exhibit in your case.
I've used that multiple times, Yusef. I got that from you years ago. I used that multiple times.
Yeah, because
And when
he's
you
an
use it,
expert
did it
witness.
work? Did it work, brother? When you use it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked for
Tell
me
us
too.
about it. Was there some sort of outcome where you were able to retain some property strictly by using that affidavit of Walker
Yes,
Todd?
they maintain the property, sir. That's what I'm
They
saying.
maintain. What does that mean when you say maintain?
Meaning they
Okay.
kept the property
They
and it
kept
did
the
not
property.
go. They kept the property.
Who
Yeah.
they kept the property? Did the bank keep the property?
No, the consumer kept the
Homeowners.
property. The individual.
Let me.
Individual. I thought the individual was you. You said you used it.
Hey, listen,
I
I'm not here
used
to
it
address
in a
your.
case, sir, not for my own case, for someone else I was working with.
Okay.
Let me
You wanna
say,
provide that case number, bro?
let me finish explaining. Okay, the thing about it is the contract that he's asking about is the correspondence you send to the Treasury Department. Okay, and then when you send that bond, you sending correspondence to them, notices, and letting them know, okay, this is what my intentions are. My intentions are this. Okay, I understand that the United States is a territorial jurisdiction. It's essentially like a private jurisdiction. You can't come in there just uttering instruments and things like that because that is a private jurisdiction. It is. They can determine what is money. They have the authority to do that. Okay, that's a private jurisdiction. Everything is conducted privately, not publicly. He don't understand when I said private citizen. Okay, you're right. A private person is not in the public. Public and private don't mix.
I
just
said
told you.
private citizen, not private person.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I just told
It does
you what
matter.
private. I just told you what private ordering was. Let me read the definition of private ordering because you don't want to look it up.
See, now it's private ordering. What I'm saying, I want to stick to one thing.
No. We're gonna stick.
You're
to
saying
this
there's an
because
implied contract, right?
Hey, man, listen, man.
Do performance.
Silence is Mike. Silence is Mike.
See,
Silence
when I
is
get to
Mike.
talking and
Hey,
getting
silence is Mike.
clarifying, then all of a sudden
I'm
you
not
get
gonna talk
emotional,
over
brother.
him. I'm not gonna
I
keep
done
talking
came with
over him.
definitions, and I'm just
I'm not
asking
gonna talk
clarifying
over
questions.
him. Can you silence his mic so I can talk? Because I'm not gonna talk over him. All
I
right.
mean, you don't have to talk. I just wanted to
Private
get
ordering.
clarification that a private citizen is someone who does not hold an official government position.
You ain't
So
gonna
what's the
silence his
point
mic.
of communicating to the
Okay,
Department
I'll
of
tell you what,
Treasury
if y'all want to come over
about
to
any
my
sort of
channel,
private
since the
citizen
person
requirements?
running his channel
Wait,
don't wanna
hold on.
administer
Wait.
properly.
You like the Bogart, brother. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm not
that.
Bogarting anything. You asked me a
Hold on,
question, you ain't let me answer.
if I may, gentlemen, let's
No,
why don't I
you're
why don't I-
jumping from word
I'm
to
trying to
word.
answer it. I'm trying to
Now
ask
it's
you a question. You keep interrupting me.
I just had to mute your mic, brother, real quick. Why don't we propose this? Ask your question succinctly as possible. I understand the need or the desire to explain why you have the question to ensure that that part's being addressed. I believe that's what you've been trying to do, but you haven't been able to get that out. So if as succinctly as possible, do
I
that.
understand the question. You don't need to explain that to me. I understand it.
Well, I'm saying
I
I don't
had a
think he
million
knows
times.
that you may understand it, so he's wanting to get it out. So it's like do it
Well,
as
we'll get it
succinctly as
out if he
possible.
stops
I
In a few
follow
interrupting.
seconds.
instructions. I'm cool.
If he
I
stops
can say the
interrupting,
question
I'll get it out.
succinctly. Okay.
Okay, so state it succinctly, and then let's build from there. Go ahead.
Okay. We're not private citizens at birth, and so what is the point of sending correspondence to the Treasury when, by definition, a private citizen must hold an official government position?
A private citizen does not hold an official government position. Where the fuck did you get that?
No. What I'm saying is that why do we have to send correspondence about being
Well, you
a
just
private?
said a private citizen
Well,
holds an
wait,
official
bro.
public
Let me
position.
clarify if I said it wrong. Don't. Let me clarify. What I'm saying is this: if we have to be a private citizen in order to have private rights, and a private citizen is someone who does not hold an official government, what is the purpose of corresponding to the U.S. Treasury?
Okay, can I answer the question without him interrupting 90?
I'll give him a mic. Go ahead.
Interrupt me.
Good.
You gonna let him interrupt me?
I think you're good. I think he's landed. He asked the question as he needed to ask
Okay,
it.
all right.
We should be
First
good.
of all, you are born a private citizen. You don't become into the public databases until you get something called a social security number. Okay, what you're rebutting is the benefits and privileges. The prima facie evidence that you are an acceptor of benefits and privileges is your social security number. That is what removes you from the private into the public, is when you participate in, and anybody can chat GPT this. What I'm saying, you can chat GPT everything I'm saying right now. It's through your participation in the system. See, you think that y'all can accept benefits and privileges and also simultaneously assert private rights. You cannot do that. You cannot assert a private right in a public regulatory space that is mixing public and private. If you want a good example, the best example of privacy is the Amish. They are conducting they don't want a car. They don't want cell phones. They don't want anything that's being regulated by the government. They try to stay away from. But you can't totally get away from it because the United States have what's called inherent powers and implied.
Speaker, he's not answering my question. He's going on to another topic right now.
Did he not understand what I was saying?
So this is what I think what's taking place. You've addressed a few things that he mentioned, but maybe not directly. So one thing I heard clear is that
he tried to say that we're not private at birth.
No, this is what I'm talking about, right? Earlier,
are you a private citizen yourself?
Hold on, brother. Hold on. So earlier on in here, he was mentioning about what contract. Now he's asking a different question. But I think what you just spoke to mentions the contract, which is why I can hear why you asked, do you know what implied contract is? Because the answer to the question of what contract is contingent upon behavior, which is why you wanted to read the definition of implied contract.
First and foremost, public and private, there's really no such thing as you living in the private and living in the public. You're either engaged in something private or you're engaged in some sort of public regulatory activity. 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 When you call an individual, one is called a partnership, an association, a company, a corporation, an estate, and a trust. Those are the 7 entities that the IRS, in their statutes, right? Because when you come from the private into the public, they reinterpret your conduct through a statutory scheme, which you call a person, okay? And then they classify that. And that's going to result in your duties and your liabilities for any conduct that you engage in the public. Once again, private ordering, let me just read you private ordering. Private ordering refers to a legal and economic concept where individuals or entities establish their own rules, norms, and enforcement mechanisms to govern relationships or activities rather than relying on government regulation or public law. Okay, now who are these organizations? That's your Skull and Bones, your Illuminati, your Rosicrucian, the Masonic orders. Those people, they have their own private government. They have their own mechanisms where they issue enforcement, punishments. A private person should be doing arbitration. He should never even be in a courtroom, a true private person. However you want to style it, private citizen, private person, that doesn't mean anything. They're looking at your conduct because they do what's called form versus substance. They don't give a damn what you style yourself as. That's called form. The substance of transactions is what they are looking at in the substance of your conduct. That is what is being monitored. That is what is being reinterpreted through statutes. And how you have to do that is the skill in being private or conducting your affairs privately, since he wants to get into this discussion about nomenclature and all this shit. Okay, it is how you conduct your affairs privately, and that's what the trust is for. That's what the private member association is for, and that's what the contracts are for. And you can.
So there's no point in sending correspondence to the Treasury then.
No, there is a point.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, right?
Well, can I finish?
Man, you've been going on for like 4 minutes now, bro.
You're sending correspondence to the Treasury if you plan on discharging debt privately. Because HR 192 only applies to them. It doesn't apply to corporations, doesn't apply to anybody else. It applies to them. So you're rebutting a presumption that you're an acceptor of benefits and privileges, and you're telling them, hey, look, I can conduct my commercial affairs myself. I don't need you to do it for me, because that's what the government has been doing. You are an acceptor. You are looked at as a welfare recipient. That's what the welfare state was in 1933 under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's called the welfare state, and it's called the New Deal. What
There
was the
will.
deal? Wait, let me ask him a question. If there is a new deal, tell me what the old deal was, brother, since you know everything. Since we had a new deal, what was the old deal?
He dropped from the panel a couple seconds ago.
He didn't drop. I dropped him.
Oh, well.
Let me ask you, Nanita, what was the old deal, brother?
As far as in reference to the new deal, it was
Yeah, you had a new deal. What was the old deal?
You wasn't social welfare recipients. You did
You
your
were
own work.
responsible for yourself.
No,
Yeah, you.
prior to that, you were responsible for yourself.
For yourself.
You
You had
did your own
land.
work. Yeah.
There wasn't any cities. That's why you should watch that movie, The Men Who Built America, with Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Vanderbilt, and Carnegie. Carnegie was the steel magnate. J.P. Morgan was the banker. Rockefeller had the oil, and Vanderbilt had the railroads. That's where they got the game of monopoly from. They monopolized all those industries, and they built this. Okay, so and now they signed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913 under Woodrow Wilson. 20 years later, they bankrupt the country. Okay, the bankruptcy, if you study, why don't y'all do this for me? Why don't y'all take the congressional record of the 73rd Congress and upload it to ChatGPT? Then why don't you also take the Financial Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 95 and upload that to ChatGPT? Take the affidavit of Walker Tide and upload that to ChatGPT.
What was you
And then
trying to ask me?
try to find out if you can conduct some sort of equitable claim, because the new deal was we will take care of you.
I literally just told you this. I said that.
The new deal was we will take care of you if you agree to be a surety for the national debt. And that's what the new deal was. Prior to that, you worked for yourself. You had gold and silver. You weren't taxed. You owned your land. When any of those things going on, all that stuff started transpiring after 1933. You got all these welfare programs and so forth that they're borrowing. Because every time they borrow money, they're borrowing money in your name for your benefit. They're claiming it's for your benefit. That's what the borrowing the money is for welfare programs. So, and you pay them back through your labor.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask you a question, good
Yeah, go ahead.
and peace to the panel. How are y'all feeling? I kind of get what the other brother was saying too, because
I didn't get shit.
I know a lot of people use public and private. Right, because I understand. He's saying, why do you have to correspond with the said
You don't have to
foreign
correspond. And
agents
listen,
and the agencies
you don't
about anything?
have to.
Him saying,
Listen.
but him saying, I'm gonna finish. Can I finish? I'm gonna finish. I'm not even on his point, because I know you have to put him on notice. I'm not on his point. The point I was making, the point I was making is I just definitely lost the point because he was just talking right. But the point I was making is public and private happens both. Public is if you're part of a state or a government and you're a citizen or in a state under that trust. You then operate commerce.
Where did you get that from? Where did you get that definition?
Private is
Where
dealing
did
with.
you get that definition you just gave me? Where did you get that from?
Let me finish.
That's not what it is.
I'm gonna lay it down. I'm gonna lay it down, brother. It's cool. I'm just gonna make a point.
Go ahead. You're going to definition, because that's not the definition.
Right? All right.
I can't answer the question.
I got you, bro. I got you. I never said it was a definition. I just said public. Even if hold on, I didn't give you a definition. I gave you a legal understanding of the mechanisms of when you apply these words and what they're meant to be used for. I didn't give you a definition, brother, man. I said public. Actually, when you're looking at it, it's. Let me finish. Let me finish. That's
what you mean.
Can y'all talk one at a time?
All right, so public. So all I'm saying is,
it's his mic.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks, man.
I'm sorry. That's me with this stuff in the background, right? But all I'm saying is, you also said you have to correspond IRS to show that you know the New Deal. You said with the New Deal, they agree with the Social Security and with the birth certificate, the new form of deal on Jekyll Island, right? That now they're gonna be your masters, or I guess you're saying that form of government they changed into some type of servitude or surety government. I don't know what you're saying, but
Let me ask you that.
I
Did I
didn't
say any of that shit he
he
just said? Anybody? Did I say any of
understand
that shit?
why he
no,
was mixing the new.
I didn't say none of that shit.
no.
I
All right,
didn't
let me
understand.
explain, brother.
I didn't
Mute his
understand.
mic. Mute his mic. Mute his mic. Let me
I
explain.
didn't
Let me mute his mic. Okay, here's the thing, y'all.
understand
You
why.
don't, can I mute his mic
Here,
right now?
here's
'Cause I know what he's
I
talking.
didn't.
You don't need to say nothing else.
That
You don't need to say nothing else.
why
I
does
got
any
it.
deal
I got it. I'm gonna ask you a
dealing
question. All right.
a
I'm gonna answer
corporation
your
of
question.
87
Lord,
lawful
please.
Can I ask you a question? I got it.
I had to
it.
disconnect him because he removed his ability to have his mic turned off. So I just had
Yes,
to
I
drop it
couldn't.
from
I
the
couldn't
panel.
even block him.
Okay, yeah. Let me say this. First of all, you don't have to do a goddamn thing. All right, let's just make that clear. Okay. The only reason that you're sending a package to the Treasury if you want to discharge debt, motherfucker. All right, if you private, a private
Such
person.
language. Go ahead.
Okay, let me stop.
Thank you,
A
hon.
private individual does not have to correspond with the government at all. You don't need to send them shit. You only send in a package if you want to discharge debt. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about if you just want to live in the private, because privacy means the right to be left alone. So if you want to be left alone, you don't have to send shit to nobody because you're not taking anything from them. That's what Hale versus Hinkle was trying to explain to you, that the government owes no duty to you except beyond the protection of your life, liberty, and property as long as you don't infringe on their rights. And that's called the public rights doctrine. If you have a compelling public interest, they can come in. As long as you don't use any of their stuff, they will leave you alone. You have that right. But the problem with you is y'all are trying to say driving, going to the movie theater, using banks, putting your children in public school, going to the bank and getting loans, mortgages and all that. Y'all think that is private, and that's not private activity. That all falls under public regulatory systems.
So Yusef, when you do any commercial transaction, shouldn't you put it under a trust or different things of that sort to separate
Okay, let's get some clarification on the trust. I don't even know where y'all got this thing that a trust have superpowers.
Yeah, you
I
shouldn't
didn't say that. I'm not saying that.
I understand, but no. Let me explain. Okay, yes, if you're going to do a transaction, you do it through either a trust or you do it through contracts. All business that a trust conducts is done through contracts. The contract clause is your superpower. The government can make no law that will impair the obligation of contracts. Can everybody just read that and kind of let it marinate on you? The government can make no law that will impair the obligation of contracts. However, there is one exception. You, likewise, cannot put anything in your contract that violates public policy. Okay? Anybody can Google this.
Just had this discussion yesterday.
Use your Chat GPT. Okay. So your super protection is private ordering. That is the word that nobody talks about in this space. That is the area you're supposed to be operating in under what is called private ordering. Okay. You don't have to send shit to the Treasury Department. I didn't never say you have to do this. Okay. What I'm saying is you want to give notice, UCC 1-202, to the government, because you have to give notice for everything you do in law.
Right.
You're giving notice if you're going to take some action, because if you don't want to get a charge for men's rape, criminal intent, you can't get a charge and somebody say you intended to do something criminally if you gave them notice of what your intentions are and allowed them an opportunity to rebut or to respond to you. That's what the notices are for. Okay, not to say that, oh yeah, I have to prove that I'm a private person and all that. No, you prove that you're private by just refusing to participate in anything in the public.
Hold on for 1 second, y'all. Look at the numbers. I should have more likes than this. It's 149 people in here, 58,000 likes. Y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
I thought that was pretty good, ain't it?
It said over 3,000 likes. It said over 3,000.
And I'm
You
also
got
say this as a moderator. There's some other people that likely want to come in and speak with Yusuf. I'm gonna say this. Let's be efficient and effective in the way that we approach questions and ask them. I know that we want to preface our questions so that we can have the answer to the question be properly served. I understand that, but be succinct with it so that we can not necessarily go off on tangents. Even I've never heard questions go off on so many tangents. Usually the answer is a tangent. The questions be tangents. So let's
Well,
try to make that as efficient and effective as possible.
They think that everything is about slavery, and this is the problem I see in these spaces. Y'all don't want to take accountability for your own actions. You don't want to demonize the government, but you don't want to stop and think, well, how am I participating in this, and what can I change about my conduct? But you don't want to do that, and that's why most of you have a victim mentality. Y'all don't act like sovereigns or anything like that. Y'all act like damn socialists or Marxists and shit like that. That's what most of you sound like to me.
So
like
I'm gonna let one of you gentlemen in. Peep what I just said, and if you don't, I'm gonna mute y'all ass.
and it wouldn't let him up.
Oh, my
damn.
fault. I just went in and just chose somebody. I'll just let him because I haven't seen him up on the panel yet. But like, don't get on no bullshit. Let's be scholarly.
Yes, you got it.
Let's
Go
be
ahead.
scholarly.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
No, well, he may not necessarily have an immediate question. I'm just saying, when you get up here, come in here, sit down somewhere.
Okay, well,
Don't act up.
listen, I'm not going to stay long. Listen, I'm just going to
Yes,
say
you
this.
are.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say about 65% of the shit that I was told, I'm going to use me. I'm not going to use any of you because I came into this just like you did. I did not create any of this. I'm not the creator of any of this shit. I came in, I was arrested, and I fought my way out of prison. Okay, that's how I got introduced to this. And in doing that, I had to go to the law library, and I have a background. I know how to navigate a law library. I understand how to read a citation of authority.
Shepherdize.
I know how to shepherdize a case.
I know that.
I understand what good law is versus bad law. All right, I've made mistakes. Yes, I've made mistakes and had to change things. But the mistakes that I made was the regurgitating of the shit that you was fed when you came in. A lot of the ideas y'all have go all the way back to the Posse Comitatus. You should study somebody named Tim Turner, okay? You got individuals out there like, for instance, like a lot of these white patriots, they kind of have a vestige of this Posse Comitatus attitude, and that kind of seeped in to some of the things that y'all are talking about too. This thing, I'm not that person, you don't have jurisdiction over me, they making slaves out of us, all these different things that y'all are saying, they're vestiges of what was being taught back then. You got to throw a lot of that shit away because those guys were like farmers, shit, they wasn't people who really understood that, like Roger Elvick, he in prison right now, Jack Smith, all these guys and everything from back then. Y'all are really regurgitating a lot of the stuff that they put out, and a lot of they have misconceptions about things. I'm gonna tell you what you really need to do. Y'all really need to clean up this space, throw all that shit away, and start all over.
I'm trying. Folks don't want to hear me though.
Pretty much.
I'm trying.
I'm telling you the truth. Y'all need to throw all that shit away and start all over because the one thing he was saying, that first guy I was talking to, he was right about that. His problem is they think what they don't understand about law, man, it take a lot. And 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 it take a lot. Law, criminal law, tax law, and public international law. Private law is contract law, tort law, because the tort is a private injury. Okay, property law, that's the foundation of private rights, is property. Family law, and private international law. Once you understand the demarcation line in your mind, you can listen to somebody in 2 seconds. And that's why I be interrupting them, because they'll say some shit like, man, you don't understand public and private. And you don't understand what I'm saying when I say it. You just said a private citizen. I'm like, that don't have anything to do with anything. All right. What it has to do is, where's your conduct are you engaging in? It's not about what I declare myself as. Well, I can declare whatever I want. Law don't work off declarations and slogans. It works off your conduct. Jurisdiction attaches to your conduct.
and your comprehension.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay? You can Google this. Anybody right now, you can put ChatGPT what I'm saying and say, yep, it attaches to your conduct. But you won't do that. You ain't gonna do that because you hate to say that I'm right. And that's why I'm so gangster with this shit. Because I'm gangster with it because I know y'all don't like me and I keep doing this shit because I do everything I can, nigga, to make you mad as fuck. So you can go out and try to prove me wrong.
Hey, I'll go ahead and answer for him. Yeah, you're right. Chat agrees with everything you said because he's been listening. You know, whenever you said pull him up, I said shit. I'll pull him up for him just so I can answer for everybody. But yeah, he's right.
I'm trying to tell you, okay, it's public. If you just will remember this, private rights begin where public regulation ends. Put that in ChatGPT. Put in ChatGPT, private rights begin where public regulation ends. And then put in private ordering. And then ask it, how can I establish private ordering and give me the steps I need to privately order myself? And there's your answer. I really shouldn't have to say anything else. That's it. I threw away a lot of the shit. If you come to SBC University, all them documents on the internet, I threw all that shit away. I am creating everything on my university. It comes from my research and proper law. When we do a trust class, we read the whole damn case. There's no way you're going to learn private trust law without reading case law. There's only two ways to learn private trust. You have a mentor or you got to read a lot of case law. Not no damn citation of authority. You got to read these entire cases, understand equitable principles and how the judge utilized them to reach a decision. You got to understand the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. Our irrevocable trust is the highest level trust that there is, a private irrevocable trust, because you are shifting liability from yourself over to that entity. The whole name of the game, this is what the wealthy do, is there's a guy named Lindsey Williams. It's called Secrets of the Elite on YouTube. You should watch it and listen to him, all right? Because he spent time with the most powerful people on the planet. Don't none of them live in a city. Not one person who is wealthy in the world.
They took a lot of that down, Yusuf. They took a lot of that down off YouTube.
They did. And the thing about it is that they don't live in a city and they teach all their children never to own anything. The secret is not to have any income. And how you don't have any income is you don't put anything in your name.
Right.
You got to take care of the whole, this status correction shit. What it really is you shifting everything out of your name, meaning you can establish a business you want or a private trust, whatever you want. Okay, you need to have corporate leases if you want to stay in an apartment. The house should be placed into a trust. The automobile should be in a trust or your corporate name. The credit card should be business credit cards. You shouldn't even have a private bank account. Because every time you pay for something with, let's say you have a business and you're making money, but you're paying for your car out of your business, that constitutes income. But if you're paying for the car and it's in the business name and you're using the money from the business to pay it, that's a write-off. Okay, that's mitigating. This public only deals with commercial matters and it rewards you for doing business and it punishes you when you try to remove money from the public and bring it into the private. You get taxed heavily. Anytime you remove any public property, property from the public and try to put it into the private, they're gonna hit you with a heavy tax. And that's what happens when you work a job. That's personal income.
That's why you're supposed to leverage it and don't get capital gains tax and all that.
Really what it is you should have a business.
Right.
The system isn't designed for employees. It's not designed, it's designed in contemplation that everybody is looked at as a merchant. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're looked at. And Robert Kiyosaki said it best with the cash flow quadrant. He said you're supposed to go from an employee to self-employed to a business owner to an investor. That's the track that you're supposed to be following. From an employee to self-employed, to a business owner system, to an investor. And then, because you really can't be private unless you got money, not the way that you want to. You can't operate how you want to and not have any money. You got to have some money to really do it the way that you want. You can't be broke and walking around here talking about you private. But I'll tell
Yusuf,
you
can
what
I
I
say
do.
something really quick? Can I say something real quick, bro? There are a lot
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
people. There are a lot of people in the comments that are disparaging the fact that you're referencing them to ChatGPT because they think in some form or fashion that diminishes your level of intelligence when they don't realize that the majority of people use ChatGPT like they use Google. The reason that he is saying artificial intelligence can be a tool, it's for people that don't want to spend the number of years or days or hours that he spent in law libraries reading case law.
Yes.
The reason that he is saying this is because it's for people that don't want to read that much, and you can actually train your ChatGPT to get the correct information because ChatGPT is only as smart as its user. I'm going to say that again. ChatGPT is only as smart as its user. If you don't know,
Let me say this about AI. Let me say this about AI. First and foremost, bro, I've been doing this 20 years without AI. I had a blog talk for 7 years where people can call in, and for 3 hours a day, I just answer questions. I got all of my shows, if you want to hear them, for the last 7 years. I've been thinking about putting them all on YouTube. Okay, for 20 years, I did this without ChatGPT. For 20 years. That's why I know how to program ChatGPT, because the first thing you have to understand is public and private. So I don't need ChatGPT. I did this for years without ChatGPT. As a matter of fact, when ChatGPT doesn't give me, when I know it gives me a response that's not incorrect, I know how to challenge ChatGPT. That's how I found out about private ordering. I found out about private ordering because I'm saying, well, wait a minute, we're guaranteed a Republican form of government. They removed the gold. That seems like that is unjust enrichment. That constitutes a constructive trust and equity. Okay, so there's my claim. And they said, well, no, first of all, you cannot bring an equitable claim against the government. I'm like, why? And then because of separation of powers, that's a political question. I already know all of that. So I know ChatGPT is telling me the truth. I know I got 20 years of experience in this. I don't need ChatGPT. ChatGPT works for me. I don't work for it. But what it does is it fills in gaps on questions that I always wondered about, roadblocks that I ran into where I couldn't get the answer, I couldn't find out some, and ChatGPT does that, and it does it at lightning speed. The only reason that you don't like AI is because you don't know how to use it. Let me tell you something. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. You would do yourself a favor to get some training on it because it's not motherfucking Google. Why the fuck would they create another Google? And ChatGPT only works for public information. It doesn't work for private. You need a jailbroken AI, which I have two. I have two.
thank you.
Anything else? Let somebody else in.
Alvin, we haven't heard from you. If you have anything you wanted to add, speak,
My
contribute to the
team,
panel.
somebody's clueless to coding. No, you're not. What are you talking about? You can't jailbreak a chat. Yes, you can jailbreak a chat GPT.
He's an idiot. The proof movement is an
The
idiot.
chat GPT will tell you it has restrictions on it. It'll tell you that itself.
Go ahead.
You don't know what you're talking about.
He has no idea what he's talking about. ChatGPT
know
will
what
even
he's
do the
talking
coding
about.
for you. He's an idiot. Bye.
Talking about coding. Man, be quiet, man. You're not no AI expert. Have you coded an AI? You don't know nothing about coding AI. Bring him in and see how much you know about coding AI.
Let me.
Somebody can't jailbreak a chain. First of all, it doesn't matter because we only dealing with public matters.
Glenn, I gotta mute you because you got a lot of feedback and echoes.
Go ahead. I'm gonna drop out so somebody else can come up real quick.
Okay, no problem. While we're doing that and while somebody else coming in, Alvin, you feel free ask your question or contribute to the panel.
Just Google offline AI. You'll see a lot of them. It's with a thumb drive. There's a whole bunch of people out there got them. It's called offline AI, and there's a thumb drive. I got two of them. I'm experiencing. What you do is, when you get both of them, compare the answers you get. You know, at ChatGPT is definitely because it's online and it's supported, but this is offline. You have to train. See, this is what they don't understand. You have to train an AI. You have to train it. So this way you have to upload information to it and things like that because it scours the internet looking for things and it can't get behind firewalls. It can't get behind password protected websites and things of that nature. So you are have to, that's why I say upload FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Board Statement number 95. Right there on page 21 under financial institutions, it tells you that the banks create money out of nothing, how they create money. Upload the affidavit of Walker Todd. Upload the congressional record of the 73rd Congress. You have to upload documents to it and feed it information so it can analyze it. And it's an artificial intelligence, but you have to give it the information to analyze. You don't use it like Google and just ask it a question and send it out there to do it. These guys don't know how to use artificial intelligence. It's an amazing tool, Yeah, let me tell you something. How did I find out about private ordering? Because none of y'all even ever heard of that word.
You pulled it through AI.
Private
right?
ordering.
You pulled it through AI.
And they don't want to look it up. Because you don't want to say, they did Yusufel was right. You don't want to say that shit, but that's okay. Let me tell you something, man. You only been doing this. All y'all in that audience who don't like me, let me say this to y'all. I don't give a fuck you don't like me. But I'm going to tell you this. You make a video out of me or anything like that, if I see any disparaging information about me, I'm going to crush your motherfucking ass. I'm going to make an example out of you. Let's get the fuck off this channel.
Okay, I'm behind you.
Hey, can I say something before you go?
No, I needed to ask a question.
Y'all done ran the teacher away, man.
Y'all don't
Man, I've been sitting over here for an